And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. You found the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Even on our YouTube stream, you can watch us on our channel, The Fan Rochester, streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. I am Mike Danger. That is Gene Battaglia.
Buddy, welcome. How are you today?
Good weekend. Productive weekend. Got to take in the first full weekend of the Major League Baseball regular season. I know we have a lot of controversy around Major League Baseball, and we also have the start of the NFL owners' meetings, which I think we're going to be talking a lot about this afternoon here in the Sports Bar. Some words being exchanged, some owners and GMs and COOs and head coaches and heated conversations and all kinds of drama out of where are they? At Palm Beach?
Yeah. So they're
the Breakers.
You know, somewhere you and I would never be allowed to say. Yes, the Breakers.
If you can't go to the Breakers, the spot at Del Monte will do just fine. How bad is that?
And it all started with Christian Benford. Like, oh, hey, that's. I thought it was a little unexpected. I got to be honest. I thought, all right, he's just going to be a little too rich for the Bills' blood, but Brandon Beane gets him a little below market value. And the question I have for you, Danger, is I look at where the Sabres are now today and what Kevin Adams did, and he prepaid a lot of this stuff, including Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. It looks really, really bad now. Are we worried that maybe one or two of these guys that as good as they look right now and you're establishing this core that maybe you pulled the trigger a little too soon?
For the Bills?
Yeah.
I'd rather pay a year too soon than a year too late. And I think what they're doing with Benford is great. I think you're getting Benford at $19 million a year. You mentioned below market value, and he's right now in the prime of his career for his position. So I was nervous. If I was surprised by anything, it wasn't that they signed him. It was that they got him at $19 million. I thought for sure Benford would be a $25 million a year, $27 million a year guy when it was all said and done because he's that good. And they got him for 19. I think it's fantastic. That said, I don't think it bodes well for James Cook. When you talk about guys that are getting paid and are the Bills making a mistake by paying these guys, I think they're very calculated with who they're paying and they're trusting of who they're going to pay. They trust Benford. They trust Shakir. They trust Rousseau. These are guys that they didn't have to, but they did. And I think they did it because they know the production that they're going to get in the future is worth what they're investing in. With James Cook, I just don't get the sense that that's going to happen anytime this offseason, certainly not before the draft. And if Brandon Beane were to pay a running back, it would be the first time Brandon Beane is going to pay a running back. I think we should all brace for a life without James Cook after the 2025 season.
Well, a few thoughts here. I do believe, that Brandon Beane and the agent, Beane said so himself. They've talked, So
and I have Beane talking from the owners' meetings on James Cook. Here's Brandon Beane.
His reps and him put it out there that we did talk, so I'm not sharing anything new. It didn't lead to anything as far as, closing in on a deal. And so we moved on to the guys that, we were more on the same page with. And, at this point, Sal, we're on to the draft. Once we got Benford done, and I don't see us doing any deals anytime soon. We're going to focus on the draft and getting our cap in order, planning for how we cut the 53 down. Because like I've told you guys, we got a plan for that as well. So, but again, just because we don't have James signed today doesn't mean next year we still can't get him done before he gets to free agency.
Okay, there you have it. Which, how does James Cook now respond? There's a couple paths, and I think they're pretty obvious. One is, all right, I'll see you when we get a contract done. Meaning all the spring stuff, even the mandatory mini camps, maybe even training camp, you're not seeing James Cook and he's showing up last second. That's a possibility. Maybe James Cook has a change of heart where realizing, all right, I could play this year. I could get hurt. All right, let's sit down and maybe I'll go the same path as these other guys where I'm not going to be paid just underneath the level of Saquon Barkley. But you know what? I'm making good money here, and now my family can be comfortable for the rest of their lives. Option 3 is, all right, you're going to do that. Give me the ball. I'm going to ball out. And no, I want to test my market value. What's the most likely scenario? That's what makes sports talk fun. I have no idea.
I think it's 3. I think it's 3 all day. I think he could hold out. He could be that way, but he's got to know that ain't going to get you what you want with Buffalo. That ain't going to get you what you want with Brandon Beane. I think him not showing up, that's going to rub the coach the wrong way. It's going to prevent him from actually being able to do what he wants to do, which is prove his worth, go out there, have another great season in 2025, and test the market in 2026 where he can make his $15 million plus per year. And I think he will get $15 million or more as a free agent. Somebody will pay James Cook if he has another spectacular season like we saw in 2024.
Well, yes, that's true. But also, you're talking about 2024 when nobody was up for a contract. And you were talking about not a 2-headed monster. It was a 3-headed monster running back. And Ty Johnson's back. And so is Ray Davis. And nobody seemed overly concerned about touches for a contract. It's a pretty good vibe. So much so that I thought, oh, my gosh, why don't you have James Cook out there on that final drive in the AFC Championship game? So if you're James Cook and you want to get paid, are you really going to be okay with the 3-man rotation? Are you really going to be okay with
this is what happens to running backs in the NFL, right?
Well, I'm going to present to you a 4th option, and I think this one's remote, but it's possible. If you're a team that's looking for running back, you're picking up the phone and you're calling Brandon Beane right now.
You're talking about a trade.
Yeah.
Well, he said we're on to the draft, and that would be the time to make a move like that if you're interested in making a move like that. I don't get the sense that they're anywhere near close on an extension from Beane's remarks there. That we talked and we got the other guys done because we were closer. We're nowhere near ready to do this because we're not close. And you're not close because what he wants is something that the Bills have never done with Brandon Beane. Pay a running back? It sounds like something he just won't do. Let a team like the Raiders pay him $15 million per. I think that's the realistic path for James Cook to get his money, because you hold out in Buffalo, they're certainly not going to reward you for that. If you don't show up to off-season work, they're not going to reward you for that. You have one more year of James Cook. James Cook showing up, saying yes, doing what's asked of him, hopefully having the kind of season where he can prove that he is worth what he believes he's worth, and then another team will pay him that money. I just don't see it being Buffalo. Not based on Beane's conversation there, not based on them being able to get an extension done now. They say how much they love James Cook, and we have no reason to believe that they don't love James Cook, but not at that price. We love you, but not at that price. So, again, it's running back. We talk about this all the time. Yes, guys like Saquon are special, and James Cook is a special player. But you can find that production, maybe not Saquon level production, but you can find that production in the draft. You can find that production with undrafted free agents. It happens all the time.
Ideally, though, okay, in the Scatterboo in round 2, I don't think ideally, I don't want the Bills to be spending a 1st or 2nd round pick on a running back.
Agreed.
So there's got to be some sort of middle ground, and that's why I was a little surprised that Beane kind of took that approach. Like it didn't sound like the door is shut, but it was like, yeah, it's shut for now. It's shut for now.
Yeah, we're not talking.
Yeah.
We're not talking because you guys are way off. I mean, you want $15 million per? Nowhere near what we're willing to offer you. So we'll readdress and rediscuss later, or maybe that option of James Cook is on the market. Nobody really knows that James Cook is on the market. We don't want to pay this guy. If you want him, you have him. What's it going to take? Is it going to take a 2nd round pick? You get back a 2nd round pick for James Cook. What you invested in James Cook, you get back in return. I think that would be good business if you're Brandon Beane. Unless you want to keep him around for another year, which I think you probably do. You can I mean, if you were to draft, you imagine it'd be a late round guy that would probably sit on the practice squad, or you still have Frank Gore Jr. on the practice squad. You got guys that you're trying to develop. You do have guys you're trying to develop.
No,
I'm not going to say Darrington Evans, but I am going to say Frank Gore Jr. is a little interesting.
I would say yawn on Darrington Evans and Frank Gore Jr. No disrespect. I would say that you're spending a mid to late round pick on a running back, and that's just fine. There's countless examples of 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. And you know what? Maybe one of those guys proves me wrong. That they'll ball on out and they'll look really good at Fisher and they'll get some. You have Ray Davis.
Who'll be the name? Who'll be this year's?
Oh, it's Shavers again.
Will it be Shavers again? I was going to say, does it move on from Shavers this year? Does it become a Frank Gore Jr.? Does it become that camp guy that everybody's like, oh, have you seen how Frank Gore Jr. looks this year? Wow, what work ethic, what process. This guy is awesome. We'll talk more Buffalo Bills later this afternoon. Our buddy Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com is going to stop by right around 4:25.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how these stories kind of line up together where, all right, doesn't seem like the Bills are going to be paying James Cook, but, hey, maybe you actually need a running back if you can't do the tush push. Wow. I didn't have that like a month ago, that this is on the verge of getting outlawed in the NFL.
You only need 9 owners, I want to say 9 owners, to say, no, leave it alone. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You need 24 or more votes for it to pass, right? For a new rule to pass. But it sure sounds like there's a lot of campaigning going on at the NFL owners' meetings for and against, with the Eagles, of course, being the strongest proponent for keeping the tush push.
So you had the report last night from the official NFL media arm saying that it was an animated conversation between Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, and the co-chair of the competition committee, which happens to be Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott.
No, it's McDermott and McVay are both on the competition committee, and they were there with Roseman and the assistant GM.
Right.
Basically chewing it up and trying to, where you hear McDermott talking about it publicly, the safety of the play feels a little hypocritical to me.
Well, that was this morning, talking about, and I wish I knew who asked this question, but asking Sean McDermott, okay, if the safety, you're saying this, so if it doesn't pass and if it's all about safety, do you stop running this play yourself?
And he wouldn't say anything. Yeah. Yeah. They run it with the second best efficiency of any other team. It was the Eagles and the Bills, the two teams that run that play better than any other.
You gotta understand, like, Danger. There's no difference than like when Tom Brady did this for years and years. It's 4th and 1. Where's the gap? There it is. I'm gonna lean forward. Like, Josh Allen still can QB sneak. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
What we're talking about is, putting whoever, Reggie Gilliam behind Sean, they're making, behind Josh Allen and plowing ahead. That's what we're talking about.
This is a couple of minutes earlier, Sean McDermott talking about the tush push.
Dove deeper into more of the data on it and, just thought more about it as well. And my position hasn't really changed at all. I feel where I'm most concerned is, even though there's not significant data out there to this point, my biggest concern is the health and safety of the players, first and foremost.
What are you seeing with the health and safety of the players, since, as you said, there is really no data to say there's injuries? Like, what are you seeing?
I think anytime you get in, it's two things. It's force, added force, number one, and then the posture of the players. Being asked to execute that type of play, that's where my concern comes in.
Do you think you'll continue to run the play if it remains, and you have concerns about the safety? Do you think you'll continue to run it? Because I think you ran it quite a bit last year.
A form of it, right? A form of it. So I think it's a loose term, really, in terms of what defines a tush push. So there's different forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So I just Look, we're gonna always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
There's no actual health and safety data showing that there's any problem with it after we've seen, over 300-something snaps, specifically in Philadelphia. Then how much more data do you need? Is it the hope that there's going to be injury that those would be opposed to it?
Well, number one, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get too deep into that situation there in terms of how much data, how much sample. I don't think that's really always the best way to go. I think is when you're looking at, there's other data out there that suggests when you're in a posture like we're talking about, that can lead to serious injury. And I think being responsible and proactive in that regard is the right way to go.
I hear a man that's over his skis that are danger.
Oh, I didn't do the McDermott McLies dinger on that.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man, it would have broke.
We'll do that.
It would have gone off the. You would have registered on the Richter scale.
Well, today I learned that McVay and McDermott really aren't in charge here. Like, this is coming from somewhere else. I don't know if that's the networks telling Goodell. I don't know if it's the owners. I don't know what it is. But we're going to get rid of this because of the data. But we don't have enough data.
There isn't any data.
There's no data.
There's no data. You can talk about the posture all you want. There is no data on anybody being injured on this play. Every player that's in that play kind of hates that play because it's tough. It's a tough play. Whether you're on the offensive side or the defensive side, it's punishing. But there's no data that suggests that there's an inherent risk of injury. You could talk about the posture all you want. Where's the injury? If there's the data, what's this data that you've been reviewing, Coach McDermott? There is none. There is no data on that specific play. And you run it second most in the league, you hypocrite. What are you doing? So, yeah, I believe you when you say this is coming from somewhere else. I don't know who got to McDermott. I don't know who got to McVay. I don't know if it's the NFL, if it's from above, if it's Goodell, if it's a series of owners that are pulling him aside. That'll be an interesting vote. That'll be interesting to see. If it goes away, really all that goes away is the immediate push from behind.
Right.
The play itself might still look very much like it looks right now without that one person immediately pushing from behind, in which regard I would say, well, then the play isn't any safer than it was with one guy pushing behind. What do you mean?
Right.
It's not a player safety thing. It's not a player safety thing at all.
3rd and 1. It's like, we want to why don't you just say this? I would have more respect if they just said this. We need to protect our quarterbacks. All right, and I feel like we're playing with fire here.
Okay.
Isn't that what it's all about?
If that's
ultimately?
the argument, then I would say adopt what the defending AFC champion has done and don't run it at all. Because the one time you tried to run it, your quarterback got injured, you missed a series of games, and you're like, nope, we're going to protect the quarterback at all costs. You didn't have that regard for Josh Allen last year when you had him running it 4 times in a row in the AFC championship game.
So coming from above, maybe it's just as simple as his own owner. I just paid all this money. This quarterback now is the highest paid player in whatever history.
Yeah.
We're not doing that anymore, Sean.
It could very well be coming from the owner. Oh, my God. This meddlesome owner. It very well could be coming from Pagula. It could be coming from a lot of different owners who want to, more than anything, not put their quarterback at risk. I don't know that the quarterback's as much risk as the center. To hear Jason Kelsey talk about the years that he had to run that thing and how miserable of a play it was for him being on the bottom of that pile. But protecting the quarterback, yes. But don't tell me it's about player safety when you're the team that's run it the second most amount of times in the NFL. It makes zero sense to me. It's hypocritical. And there is no data. No, we're exploring the data and doing the video. And then the next minute, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to. What? Okay, so
No.
What is it? He doesn't know. You're lying. You're right. Well over his skis.
McDermott word salad. To the rest of the NFL, welcome. We've known this here in Rochester how long?
Right.
Talking circles.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and also, Bills media does a great job, but they don't press him the way you just heard the national media pressing him a little bit in the moment. To say in the moment, Really, tell me about this data that exists. Where is this data? What data and what would you run it? Since you run it as often as you do, would you continue to run it?
Okay, so you say you don't have the data, but how much data do you need? Or how much are you short? Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
Where do you come down, Gino? Do you want to play in the NFL or not?
Ironically, I'm making fun of McDermott. I want it out. I don't I think just go back to the quarterback sneak and do it that way. Is it pleasing on watching this on? No, give the defense a chance to make a stop.
I think it's terrible. I don't get rid of it. Keep it in the game. If you're a defense, your job is to stop that play. And it can be done. The Chiefs showed it can be done. You can stop that play. Defensive-minded head coaches are always going to think about ways to stop that play. Defensive coordinators should be thinking about ways to stop that play. You have to be able to stop that play. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. But I think it's so weak. If that is out of the game, so weak, so soft, 10-ply. I can't believe that we're even having this discussion.
We will talk some Giants, Jets, and Yankees coming up. First time on the show, our buddy Keith McPherson. He is with WFAN in New York.
I love that.
Yeah, Keith will be joining us. He does talk a lot of Yankees and Mets on his show, which you can hear on the Odyssey app for free on weeknights. And come on, it took this long to crack the code on a bat. Why are we upset about a bat? Everybody's upset about the torpedo bat.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to have this discussion with Keith. And you know what? We have to acknowledge Keith as Take of the Year nominee from 2023 as well, even though it wasn't him. It was John Heyman, but it was Keith who was on the air.
Broken a lot of stories. I think the reason that got such play is because people believe everything I tweet. I've had 100,000 tweets, and, you get one that was wrong, and it did say appears, and I know I rushed it, and it was a big mistake, and I regret it, but it's 2 years later.
No regrets.
I think it's like at some point, I think someone could probably drop it if they're a nice person.
What I think is, one, it just like how I introduced you. Everybody in baseball knows who you are. So, one, it's a credit to your work, your following, and how.
By the way, I won't be going on with you again. The whole thing has been a disaster.
That's okay.
I can't even believe you said that to question my integrity.
Are you being serious right now?
I'm being serious, yeah.
John.
Asking me if I'm getting a cut because I have a relationship with an agent. That's outrageous. I know you're not a journalist. You don't know anything about this. I know you don't, but that's an outrageous comment. You should know that
it's
much.
Friday night at 8:30, John.
You should know that much.
And I am
I'm
not.
done with you.
I am
and
not
I'm
taking
done with
this that
WFAN.
serious.
Goodbye.
John, thank you for
I
joining
can't
us,
even
John.
believe it.
Thank you,
I can't
John.
even believe it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. He's got to get to bed. I did not expect it to go that way.
That's our guy, Keith McPherson, diffusing a situation.
Keith is a pro's pro.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll have him on next.
How dare you question
my credibility, my
integrity?
Oh, God. What a blowhard. Keith McPherson, WFAN. Joining us next, we'll talk about that torpedo bat and what's ahead for these Yankees and this bat and how long before everybody else in Major League Baseball catches on and starts using this new modified bat. Keith McPherson, WFAN, next on The Fan.
Forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So we're going to always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
Bill signing a punter today, Brad Robbins. Robbins, a 2023 sixth-round pick out of Cincinnati. On the Major League scoreboard, opening day in Baltimore, where the Orioles leading the Red Sox 4-2. They're in the third. In Chicago, the White Sox are up 9-0 on the Twins. Brewers opening day, the Royals are up 4-0 in the fifth. Phillies and Rockies no score in the second. The Mets taking on the Marlins in Miami tonight. The Yankees are off. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Are you sure the Yankees are off? Because I heard that they just hit another home run.
They're off.
They're off.
I can assure you.
Keith McPherson, you can hear nighttime WFAN, our Odyssey Sports sister station in New York, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Keith, thanks for joining us, man. What a weekend in the Bronx, and we're talking torpedo bats. Welcome to Western New York, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, we got you there. So, Keith, opening week for the Yankees, and they pour it on Milwaukee, yet everybody wants to talk about the bats here. Is it just that simple, or maybe we're just kind of undervaluing here what the Yankees lineup could be? How are you today?
I'm good, and the Brewers are not good. I think they're getting off the hook here. I think the Brewers are getting off scot-free. They're a team that ended last year in the wild card, losing at home again, losing to the New York Mets. And, they come into New York, and there's all this talk about what they're going to be, and Devin Williams as a Yankee, and even Nestor Cortez. There were a lot of Yankee fans actually worried that Nestor Cortez was going to shove against his former team, and none of that happened. I mean, the Brewers are getting off scot-free. It's not them, it's the bats. But, of course, it's the Yankees. So if there was any other team in Major League Baseball that hit, 9 home runs in a game, that scored 36 runs over the weekend, it probably wouldn't be this big thing. But in this social media digital age, it's the torpedo bats. They're cheating.
All right, so let's explore that a little bit, because what's the word on the street, Keith, that there's somebody employed by the Yankees who's like an MIT grad that designed a better bat for going distance, or is it something other than that? And what would prevent other teams from doing exactly what the Yankees have done if that's the case?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk going around about the MIT physicists, but this is not exclusive to the Yankees. Alex Cora was interviewed, and he said, yeah, some of our guys had the bats. The Cubs used them. There's a guy on the Twins that uses them. The Braves have just put an order out for them. But, since it's the Yankees, it's Yankees for clicks, but, obviously it's the output of guys like Jazz Chisholm, who's using one. And then I mentioned Nestor Cortez. I was at the game Saturday. When the game starts off with Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt, two guys that are using the bat, going back-to-back and a belly-to-belly, pun intended, people's eyes and ears and attention is up, because before the game on Saturday, I didn't say a word. But Yankees Twitter was like, oh, this lineup is such a boon lineup. This lineup is terrible. And it's the second game of the season. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So it can't just be that Aaron Boone was smart and knew how to line his guys up. No, again, it's the bats and it's the physicists. Honestly, it's a non-story that is good for baseball, though. In the first series of baseball, we have this story that across the country people are talking about. And I'm just hoping that it dies down through the end of the week.
Yeah, Keith McPherson, Sports Radio 66 WFAN New York, joining us here in the sports bar. Keith, just going into this season, seemed like there's a lot of love for the Red Sox. Look, they made improvements. Baltimore is there, but for a team that reached the World Series last year and won the American League and the Yankees, and surely you lost Soto. There's some injuries to the pitching staff, but do you think the Yankees were a little undervalued in terms of who should win this division entering this season?
No. I just think that the Red Sox made some moves. They bring in Walker Buehler. They go get Garrett Crochet. Aroldis Chapman is over there. And then, they came to grab Alex Bregman, and I wasn't thinking that they were going to do that until they did. So you're looking at a team with a good manager who's already won. You're looking at a team that had talent like Rafael Devers already there. And, people put 2 and 2 together to say, okay, this is a team that had a great offseason. They should be the ones to jump over the Yankees in a quote-unquote wide open American League. But, as far as the Yankees and people underestimating the Yankees, it's narratives too. Juan Soto chose to go across town and leave the Yankees for the Mets. The Yankees aren't the Yankees anymore. The pinstripes don't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. But then when you actually look at the pivot and how Brian Cashman took the money that he would have spent on Juan Soto and he actually plugged some holes and made the lineup deeper. And the defense, that was a narrative on Saturday as I was in the ballpark. The Yankees kind of booted the ball around, but nobody's talking about it. The defense is supposed to be better this year. So, man, I cannot wait for those games, Red Sox, Yankees. That's another thing that they say. Oh, the rivalry has no more juice. It's not what it once was. Well, maybe if both teams are good at the same time and playing good baseball at the same time, it'll be something that folks want to tune into.
All right, so we've talked about the Yankees. We've talked about the series against Milwaukee. What are people talking about in New York about the team from Queens? What are people saying about the Mets? Any concern that Soto didn't live up to any hype in his first series?
He had a home run, Danger. Go ahead. Sorry.
Got a Mets fan across from me. I
honestly,
apologize.
No, it's all good. They got one hit on Saturday, and he had the double off the wall, and then there was nothing else. I'm honestly disappointed in my fellow hosts over at WFAN, most of which are Mets fans, because they took the bait. And instead of talking about the Mets lineup, which was projected as the best lineup in baseball or one of the best next to the Dodgers, especially their top 4 or 5, they took the bait on the torpedo bats and, talking about the Yankees. And how I said the Brewers got off, the Mets got off scot-free. So far, I have not heard any of our hosts go in on the Mets issues. And this is what I'll say about the Mets. You can add Juan Soto. You can add a 5-borough race. You can add a Mets house in the city. You can add all of these things to sell tickets and manufacture hype. The games have to be played. And what you did not do was spend money on that rotation. What you did not do was say, okay, it worked last year with our quote-unquote pitching lab and getting the most out of guys. Let's run it back. Well, the Mets went on a historic run from June to October with how they hit. They had a pop star in the lineup. They had guys playing above their heads, and the guy leading off should have won MVP in Francisco Lindor.
Great.
He historically starts slow. Pete Alonso had a down year last year. They paid him, and right now Pete Alonso looks more like he looked last year than what they're paying him for. Juan Soto is generational all-world. I bet on him in the homer the second day because I watched him last year. He doesn't put together 2 bad games. And the way that the first game ended with the bat in his hand, I knew he was coming to hit one out the next day. But he can't do it alone. So if your lineup isn't powerful all the way through and your pitching is just average, you can get beat by a team like the Astros who they did enough to beat you. They didn't have to blow you out. They could beat you by 1 run, 2 runs, and that's the series.
Keith McPherson, who you can hear after the Brooklyn Net game tonight, and quite often after the Yankees on WFAN, which you can hear in the Odyssey app. Keith, I love asking this question. Are the LA Dodgers good or bad for baseball?
They're great for baseball. They are phenomenal for baseball. They are in Hollywood. They have the biggest fan base as far as attendance. They have now movies made about the World Series run. They always go for it. I'm jealous. I used to go out to Dodger Stadium, and something I say on my show, KM to AM, is I've been to Dodger Stadium more than I've been to Citi Field, which is still absolutely true. I kind of, admired the Dodgers for years, obviously the former Brooklyn Dodgers. And, I have friends out there. My sister even lives out in West Hollywood. I've watched their culture. I've watched their fans support that team and how every offseason they spend and every trade deadline they make moves and they stack the deck and they don't stop trying to win. And that is why every year they're competing for the National League pennant. They're going to World Series. And now they've won a couple in these last few years. They're good for baseball. Now, if you're talking about the deferred money, yeah, well, that's going to be an issue. There's going to be some conversations about that with the owners. We might lock out in 2 years. That loophole, I don't think that's necessarily great for baseball because it allows you to stack the deck in a way that not everybody else is. Everyone can, but not everyone else has mastered that, and not everyone else has the appeal of Chavez Ravine and sunny California and Shohei Ohtani, the unicorn, on their team with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody, it's going to be tough to sell someone to take a 10-year deferred contract to go to Wisconsin and play for the Brewers.
Yeah.
But with the Dodgers, they are star power. They are champions. As much as it pains me going to that World Series and watching how close the Yankees were and, had self-inflicted wounds, no, I have no problem with the Dodgers and who they are. And here we are this year, right? They're supposed to repeat, and we haven't seen a team repeat since the Yankees had a three-peat. So let's see if they could get it done. From what I saw over the weekend, it looked like, Roki Sasaki was crying in the club, couldn't get out of second inning. He was crying in the clubhouse.
Keith, I actually think they're good for baseball because they kind of take the villain role and run with it. I mean, for years it was always the Yankees that kind of like were viewed as the team that would just go buy championships, and now you've got the Dodgers doing that. I mean, is there something to that the only negative I can think of that is that we're watching a unicorn. You described him as such, Shohei Ohtani, and I really want to see greatness. That's what this team is, but at the same time, they almost have this kind of villainous title with them because they've spent as much as they've spent.
They need somebody to be a jerk, though. They need somebody to be, the agitator, because, those guys are all good guys. Like, last year when Yankee fans were hating on Freddie Freeman, I'm like, you guys don't know anything about Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
If you're not happy for this man and his dad and his sons and his wife and their family, I'm like, you got to do some research. Just there's so many things on him. Even a guy like Mookie Betts. Even a guy like Shohei, they can be the villains because they win, and I certainly rather them be the villains versus the cheating Astros who were the villains for X amount of years. But they don't have that one guy that you hate. They have so many likable guys on that team. Even Teoscar Hernandez, Teoscar Hernandez teared up as the fans were chanting his name, in the stadium once they got back from the World Series parade. Took a 1-year deal with them and became the man. Maybe Blake Snell can be a little bit of an agitator. I'm trying to think. I'm like, is there one guy on their team? Oh, Joe Kelly, who doesn't count anymore. He's not on their team. Joe Kelly, who went on a whole podcast tour about, Yankee defense. We knew that the Yankees were going to have self-inflicted wounds. But no, the Dodgers, they have star players. They have good guys. And their front office, the Guggenheim partners, they have cracked the code. Let's see if they can win it again. Let's see if they can repeat.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Roberts, I don't even hate.
Likable guy.
Yeah, likable guy. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, not so much for us Yankee fans that see him running on the base paths on us from 2004, but, as a manager, that guy, they were ready to fire, and, he figured it out.
The show is KM to AM. Keith McPherson, our guest here in the Sports Bar. Keith, on our show, we talk a lot of football. We're in Buffalo Bills country, so we follow the Bills. But we do have Giant fans here. We do follow Brian Dable. Quite honestly, we were surprised that the Giants didn't clean house. From where you said, can you explain what the plan is at quarterback for the Giants? Because it certainly looks like, okay, please draft Shedeur Sanders, because if this is it, hard for me to think that anything is going to be much better for the Giants than it was last year.
Yeah, so Jameis Winston was announced today, and I'm a fan of Jameis, not necessarily his play, but just his character. Yep. Some of the quotables, and what he said is that this organization, this team, is looking for a paradigm shift. Instead of having the Tim Boyles, the Drew Locks, Tommy DeVito is still there, but he could easily be cut and let go if they draft a quarterback. The Jake Fromms, the Mike Glennons, they've had so many guys that were barely NFL quarterbacks in there. They had so many guys that had Davis Webb. I'm trying to think. They had Sam Ellinger, who I saw just signed a deal with the Broncos. They had these fringe NFL quarterbacks, and the quarterback is the most important position. And not just the guy that steps on the field. In practice, in film, you need to have good quarterback. You need a good quarterback room. So what I think they're doing finally, that is, if this is their last hurrah, because like you said, they should have been fired. Them not being fired after Hard Knocks, whoever decided to put them on Hard Knocks should have been fired. Them not being fired after losing 10 games in a row and having the number one pick and then winning one stupid game. Look where they are now. If you had the number one pick, you take Cam Ward. I think now with Russ and with Jameis Winston in that locker room, it's going to be different. Those guys they're devout Christians and outwardly religious and positive in a way that is hard to find. And then they're also just guys with experience that have won Super Bowls, been the number one pick, Heisman winner, have been up, have been down. And I think they will draft Shedeur Sanders because that fires up the fan base for the future. And he gets to come in and hold the clipboard and learn and not have the pressure of like, hey, you got to go in there. Even if, Jameis is hurt, you don't got to go in there. You have the opportunity to develop and learn. And I don't know how it's going to necessarily work out because all you'll hear is that they have the toughest strength of schedule. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to win games next year, but the NFL is so unpredictable. I think they've already made some good moves this offseason. Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland, Chauncey Golston on that defense. And then even guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey and Zach Pascal, adding them to the receiver room. They need another masterful draft. I'll give them credit last year. That was a masterful draft because you hit on guys that played, but they played for one of the worst teams in the league. We'll see how they take a step forward in year two. But, yeah, the Giants have to compete. The first year of Shane and Dable, it was a gift and a curse because they were in so many games. They were able to compete and steal those games. They got to the playoffs and won a game. And then they thought that paying the quarterback was the way to go when really the offense was anchored and driven by Saquon Barkley. And then, you think that the rebuild is done. The rebuild was far from done. It was just getting started. Now they got to go back to that. Shane Bowen and his defense got to lock in. They got to be able to hold teams to under 20 points. And Brian Daboll, who's supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, right, and Mike Kafka should go back to calling the plays. They got to be able to score 25, 30 points. And if that's the case, they will find a way to win some of these games, steal some of these games. Nobody has any idea what the NFL is going to look like in this next year.
All right, Keith, what about the team in the AFC East that we'll be talking about at least twice a year with the New York Jets? What do you make of the moves that are made? I don't think there's any surprise that, that they moved on from Aaron Rodgers, but do you get a sense of any of the offseason moves that they've made here that they might be moving in a different direction as well?
Yeah, don't listen to the Jets fans that call the fan because they think that Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn are walking into a buzzsaw. They think that it's same old Jets. They think that these guys are going to be in over their heads. Meanwhile, I'm looking at their moves, and they spoke today too, right, about how they're moving in silence. Killers move in silence. They are making moves quietly to shore up this team. It seems like they finally have professionals in the room, adults in the room, guys that will look at Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, we don't need all of that. We watched the film. Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, you guys watched that film when he came up to Buffalo and they got spanked up there and he tapped out. If I'm a coach or a GM, I'm saying I'm not bringing that guy back at 41. I'm not bringing him back. And they did it. And then they go get Justin Fields, who they are going to put their hands on Justin Fields and coach him. They are going to take guys like Garrett Wilson and get the most out of them, Sauce Gardner, and get the most out of them. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but I think they're finally going to look like an NFL football team because they have the talent, which they had last year, but they had absolutely no coaching. You could tell from penalties. You could tell from just lack of execution, time management with the clock, timeouts. Now they actually have the coaching. They have the talent. I don't think they're going to be able to do anything with the Bills still, but they should look like an actual NFL team, and maybe they can sneak into the playoffs and end the drought.
Yeah. Last one on the NFL, and it's the Rodgers question. Like, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're this classy organization that's won all these championships, and now you're kind of being held up here by Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Keith, quite honestly, I thought they were smarter than that.
I think they are smarter than that, but they're so desperate at this point that they've kind of just cornered themselves. The rest of these quarterbacks in this quarterback carousel have landed and signed elsewhere. They don't have a high enough pick necessarily to trade up and get one of the top two quarterbacks in this draft or even a Jackson Dart. And most people will tell you that this isn't a surefire thing with quarterbacks in this draft. Just a few years ago, they drafted my boy Kenny Pickett from my hometown. If anybody tells you Kenny Pickett is the best quarterback to come out of Ocean Township High School, say, hey, Keith McPherson inspired him. I paved the way. I just think that they have, they've gone from Duck Hodges to, Kenny Pickett to Mason Rudolph to just, not having quarterbacks that they're really hoping that Aaron Rodgers, I heard he worked out with DK Metcalf. They're hoping that Aaron Rodgers is the answer for at least a year while they do have some talent on that team. They win, but they don't get over the hump. They compete, but they're a team that's like, who's going to take us to the next level? And they're hoping that just one more year of a motivated Rodgers can be the difference in that AFC North, in that AFC.
Keith, before we let you go, no Jalen Brunson for the last 12 games for the Knicks. Give us a little prediction of what you think happens here in the postseason for New York.
I've been down on the Knicks, and I've been hated on about it because I saw this so early. I just saw how many moves they made, trades and signing players. And, the way that the NBA works, if you don't have homegrown talent, at least two of those guys that you drafted, developed, and signed, like the system is just going to be against you. Like they lost Isaiah Hartenstein just because they weren't able to pay him more money than the teams on the free agency market. They needed that guy's toughness. They lost Dante DiVincenzo, who we just saw scrapping with the Timberwolves and the Pistons. That guy is tough. Delaware Jordan, like that guy was an important part of the team last year. They had to trade him away to get Karl Anthony Towns. You see, it's like a domino effect. You lose Ihart, you don't have a center. You got to go trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Well, now you got to give up Dante DiVincenzo, who was part of this Villanova.
Yeah.
This Villanova foursome, this Villanova reunited. And I look at Mikal Bridges, and I'm like, Mikal Bridges is better without Karl Anthony Towns. He's better without Jalen Brunson because he spent a couple years in Brooklyn where they were making him the star. They wanted him to replace KD. They wanted him to be the number one. So I just feel like they don't have enough of the pieces to compete at the top of the East, and they're going to be another second-round exit, which here in New York, they've got a ton of grace because New York loves the Knicks. But another year being bounced in the second round, they're gonna get loud. The fans are gonna get loud, and there's a chance that they scream for the head coach to be fired, which I think would be a mistake because he's a huge part of the reason that they've been competitive these last few years. So I just think that all roads lead to them running into the Celtics, and when they do, Brunson or not, they're not going to have enough. And I think this is the year that you won't hear Knicks fans chanting Knicks in 8. Knicks in 8. Like, this will be the year they'll be outside of the Garden mad about being bounced in the second round.
Oh, boy. Keith McPherson, KM to AM. Last one because, well, when it happened, we played the clip. I feel like I got to ask you the follow-up question. Did Heyman make nice with you? How did that all happen after the fact, Keith?
I've been on podcasts and asked about this. I've been on my own show and asked about this. I was literally like, I'm a nice guy, and I'm the type of person, I'm a straight shooter. I duck no smoke. I hit everything head on. Just in my life, I've just learned to, do that. And the whole Heyman thing blew up in a way that I didn't imagine. And on air, I said, when I see John, because it's not like I'm not a media member. It's not like I don't go to, baseball games and spring training and do stuff with MLB Network or Yes Network or who knows. I'll be at the All-Star game. I'll be at all that type of stuff. I'm going to run into John. And I said, when I see him, I have two things for him. One, I wanted to apologize first and be like, listen, man, I'm a jokester. I'm a young guy on the radio at night. I don't take myself as seriously as some of these other guys, and I'm a fan of yours. So I listen to you on the K Show. I listen to you on Bleacher Report. And then two, can I thank you? Because your clout made that moment go viral, and that brought so many people into my space. That brought so many people into my show that night and beyond. There are a bunch of people that became aware of me and who I am, and when they find me, my social media is there. My stuff is on the internet. I've been working at this for a while. I'm not a secret, but John Heyman, I gotta thank you, bro, because you blowing up like that, Yankees, and my good friend Susan Waldman, both of them are friends. I text them, hey, you guys want me to join the broadcast? They said, sure, come on down, 7th inning. I pop in the 3rd inning, and I see John Heyman. I'm in the media area. I see John Heyman walking through where the fans are in the seats, and I go, yes, this is my time. I'm going to talk to John tonight. I'm going to be able to apologize tonight. I'm going to be able to shake his hand, tell him thank you, and maybe he'll put together a cool little video with me where we can squash this whole thing. Well, I go on air in the 7th inning. I step out of the booth, and the first person that I see is John Heyman. I put 2 fingers in the air as a way to flag him down without yelling his name. He looks at me. We make eye contact. He keeps on walking. Big league me. Or just, I don't know, didn't want to talk to me. And I was like, okay, then I'll leave it alone. I felt like the high school bully that wanted to apologize for bullying a kid, and the kid sees him and runs away. And I'm like, I don't want that type of energy. I don't want to be that guy. So I'm like, I'll just leave it alone. And I told that story on WFAN, and I'm telling it here because I'm like, if there is one person that could potentially connect John and I or relay the message to John that yo, that kid, he's a fan of yours. He appreciates you. He wants to apologize and thank you and put this behind both of you. because he had the opportunity to do it with me face to face, and he seemed like he wasn't interested. But maybe there's a friend in common or someone that's listening that could help that happen, because I'm not going to pursue it anymore.
Or he's just a coward.
You had to hear this call. Someone called into my show after, and they're like, your story that you just told about seeing him follows up perfectly with everything else and is in line with what I thought. I'm like,
insecure, self-important coward to not talk to you face to face. Unbelievable.
You guys know I'm authentic. I'm real. I'm not pretending to be anybody. I'm not lying to anybody. I told you the real story, and if that lines up with what you knew of John Heyman, then I guess that's on brand.
Keith, it's great having you on with us here. I hope we get the chance to do it again real soon. We'll be listening for you tonight in the Odyssey app. Keep doing a great job, bud.
Of course. Appreciate you guys reaching out. I love the whole theme and angle of the sports bar. I tell people always, they meet me and they're like, your voice sounds the same. You sound the same on the radio as you do it in person. And I'm like, man, I've been in stadiums and sports bars talking sports like this forever. Like, why would I change? I don't have a voice to put on when I'm on air. I don't have any stick. Like, I got here just kind of, talking sports in bars and in arenas and ballparks with fans, and I'll talk to anybody about sports. So thanks for having me today, guys.
You got it, Keith. And I suffer the same thing. People think I sound like this when I'm off the air. I sound more like Patrick Mahomes when I'm off the air. So it's a hard thing. Keith, enjoy your night, man.
Here.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, buddy. There's Keith McPherson, WFAN. You can hear him tonight in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Fantastic story. Unbelievable story. And, of course, it checks out. Of course that coward didn't want to engage with him. Don't you know who I am? I can't believe this.
Look, I'm sure there's somebody that either Danger or I'm going to guess, we might have offended you. If you pull us aside in public, I guarantee you, we'll give you the time.
Oh, yeah.
If you flag me down, I wouldn't be like,
well, you have big-time people in the past.
No, I'm not.
But when you're on the air.
When I'm on the air, it's a different story. Like, honestly, that's, boy, I'm like thinking to myself, we have to ask him the Heyman question.
Yeah. Well, I think the way he described himself, the way he described his show, I relate to that so much here in the sports bar, because when we started doing this almost 9 years ago, that was kind of what I wanted to be. I thought to myself, you know what? It's been the same for a long, long time, where it's very serious and sports writers are, this is a serious conversation. It's like, hey, man, it's sports. It should be fun. It should be entertainment. Yeah, we'll give you information and we'll try to make you a smarter listener, but at the end of the day, we're having fun talking about sports. We're an escape. So for the guys to take it as seriously as Heyman apparently takes, it's like, grow up.
Yeah, the thing is, my opinion isn't more valuable than you listening right now. Because it's sports.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. And if it's sports, we can move off the opinion. We can change our opinion. That's what it is. Like, the way I view this, Danger, if you're listening to our show, you've got a wife, a kids, or maybe a girlfriend, a job, a boss that's up your butt. Okay, you're coming here for an escape. You're not coming here to, be weighed down. You're coming for fun.
Yeah, that's right. I love that conversation. Keith McPherson, WFAN. We covered it all, man. Yankees, Mets, Giants, Jets, Knicks, all of it.
You said about the Mets. It's
yeah. It stings a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's like, look, tell yourself we're 3 games in.
It's it. That's it.
3 games in.
That's it. Speaking of Major League Baseball, I wanted to share a couple of ideas I have that can make Major League Baseball America's pastime again, if I may, when we come back from the break. And we'll also have Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com joining us.
What can the Buffalo Bills learn from this college basketball tournament? I think there's an analogy we need to talk about.
All right, we'll get into that as well. Lots to get to as we continue in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia. And by the way, you can call us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. It's open for you at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott and the competition committee looking to take the tush push out of the game. Also from the NFL owners meetings, General Manager Brandon Beane speaking, talking about getting Christian Benford locked up.
Glad to get Christian done, and we agreed with him, and then we'll hopefully get him in town midweek to get him signed. But like I said, it came to a place that both sides thought was fair, and so excited to extend him with all the other guys that we've been able to get done.
Bills signing a punter today. Brad Robbins, originally a 2023 sixth-round pick of Cincinnati. On the Major League scoreboard, we've got the Orioles leading the Red Sox on their opening day 4-3 in Baltimore. They're in the fifth. The White Sox in the sixth, leading the Twins 9-0. Royals up on the Brewers 4-0 in the sixth. No score between the Rockies and Phillies. Wings opening day is tomorrow. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We tip off with the NCAA tournament. All 4 number 1 seeds are through to the Final Four.
South Carolina and UCLA are the first teams into the women's Final Four.
I'd like to compare the torpedo bat to the tush push.
Oh.
They have agreed to terms with Christian Benford on a 4-year extension worth $76 million.
Just because we don't have James signed today doesn't mean next year we still can't get him done.
And Frozen 4.
Mike Danger.
I'm going to test my age here over the course of the next 6 weeks or so, Gino. I mean, the stamina is going to be tested. Fatigue is going to be a factor. We're going to power through it. I actually feel invigorated because I know my limits. I've developed a tolerance in my 50 years. I think I'll be okay.
Gene Battaglia.
Mike Danger, don't you dare call Met fans misfits.
Given my track record this afternoon, I could call you a lot worse than a misfit, my friend. Damn right they are.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
A big congratulations to anybody who picked all 4 number 1 seeds in your bracket. You won. Congratulations on winning if you went all chalk and took the 1 seeds.
No, not at all. Not my pool, because I was involved in PJ's pool, and like you gotta be kidding me. I still have my final alive. When have you ever said, hey, I could have the 2 teams in the national championship and I have no chance in winning? That's what picking chalk can do, because a lot of people pick chalk.
Yeah. A lot of people went in kind of knowing it's pretty top heavy, but I don't think anybody knew. I'm sure a handful of people went chalk all the way with the 1 seeds advancing to the Final Four. But isn't that kind of isn't it set up for really, really good basketball when we get to this weekend? I mean, I think it's going to be exciting.
Maybe. I hope so. I hope we get some good action coming up here. And you do have these blue chip programs. And gosh, the SEC, they sent how many teams? They end up with 2 overall.
Yeah.
Not bad. One team that didn't get in, Alabama. And, we all follow Nate Oates because he coached at UB before jumping down there. And Oates made a point that I think is obvious, but I don't think it's talked about enough with a lot of these programs. Next year starts now for Alabama in his mind. He wants his team to try harder in the regular season next year so that they can become a number 1 seed, saying it's an easier path for a 1 seed to make the Final Four than any other seed. To which I say, duh. Yeah, it's easier because, unless you're our guy there in Virginia losing to a 16 seed, that should be kind of a pass. The analogy here, give me a second. It'll come to me.
Who are you trying to think of?
I'm thinking of a different sport where this team has tripped up in the regular season, has yet to achieve the 1 seed.
Yeah.
And actually, unlike college basketball, you could, in theory, if you're Tony Bennett, lose to a Baltimore, Maryland County. In football, if you're the 1 seed, you don't lose to anybody because you get a bye.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Sean McDermott and the Bills. Can you get the number 1 seed? That seems to be the path.
I wonder, though, Gino, I hear you, and I know that we've got a lot of offseason still ahead of us before we get to September. Last year, it was Josh Allen needs to play at an MVP level, and it wasn't enough. So when they get the 1 seed this year, we're going to be excited, and then we're going to be like, oh, God, it's not enough. They lost to Baltimore in the championship game, or whatever it is, right? I want to believe that the 1 seed, yes, of course, it's an easier path, but it doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to make it to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl.
No. Just like Josh Allen getting to an MVP level didn't cure everything. Did not.
It didn't. It wasn't enough. There needs to be more. Where do you draw the line? Where is
okay for the starters? And yes, Kansas City once upon a time did win in Buffalo a playoff game, but like, would that have made a difference? What Nate Oates is saying too, like not every year is a 1 seed. You just pencil right through to the Final Four. All these other teams are coming hungry for you too.
We had an unbelievable first weekend, Major League Baseball, loaded with offense at Yankee Stadium. That's the other part of it too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Yankee Stadium is built for that kind of game.
Saturday down there, it was sunshine and 70 degrees in March.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, it felt like a party. I was listening to Infinity Sports Network before we went on with Fisher, and it was like, they had people down there just like, wow, this feels like spring out there, and the ball's flying out of the park, and Nestor Cortez. So that is part of it, Danger. And look, it's a lineup. That's what they're supposed to do. That's when the Yankees are clicking and they're hitting home runs. It's never thought they'd get to the magic number of the sports bar in one game.
Well, I think that it's kind of hard to overreact to a team winning or losing when there's 162 of these things. A couple of ways here that Major League Baseball can become America's pastime once again and overtake the NFL, which commands just so much of the sports fans' mind share. Are you ready for some ideas here for Major League Baseball?
Okay, you're going to rattle them off, or do you want me to react to these?
I'll rattle them off, and then you can tell me what you think. Okay, first and foremost, I think more offense. If you're not going to allow the guys to juice, that's fine. Just the torpedo bat, it's a step in the right direction. Hell, the NFL loves offense so much that they've basically banned tackling in the league. So I'm for more offense. I want to shorten the schedule. That's number 2, from 162 games down to 17 games. 17-game schedule for Major League Baseball. Make it an NFL-like schedule. 3 months with games on Monday night and Sunday night. And okay, fine, you can have a game on Thursday night as well. Be the NFL. No more blackouts. That's number 3. And number 4, just erase the NFL from our minds altogether somehow magically if that's possible, and ensure that the NFL never plays another football game again. Then the Major League Baseball will once again be America's pastime. Good luck, Manfred. Oh, never mind. He sucks too. Getting rid of him should be step 1. These are my steps for improving Major League Baseball and making it America's pastime once again.
Okay, I'm going to go in reverse here. With the last one, make you forget about the NFL. Your daughter got to you.
Why?
Why? Because isn't she into Severance? Like the idea that you can like eliminate things from your life and you could eliminate the NFL?
She did not get to me.
She got to you.
She did not
She's
get to
talking
me.
to you about how great this show is.
I don't know anything about Severance. I don't know what you're talking. I got my head in the sand on Severance. I'm blissfully ignorant to what you're describing. I have no idea what this show is.
All right, if you're, we're part of the club here, Danger. You're not. All right, so sure, like you're never gonna win against the NFL. Like once we get to September, it's like, oh yeah. Pennant races, yeah. Get to the play, yeah. 3, no more blackouts. Of course, no more blackouts. It's the dumbest rule ever.
It's terrible.
Terrible. 2, shorten the schedule. Come on, how are they going to make up that revenue, Danger? How?
TV. It's a more made-for-TV product. You make it 17 games, just like the NFL. Basically, what I'm saying is Major League Baseball needs to be what the NFL is, and the NFL just needs to cease to exist from our minds so we never, ever remember that we enjoyed this thing called the National Football League.
More offense. I mean, what the torpedo bat does, though, it's not just the home runs. The little thing that what it was explained for Volpe was he's making contact with the bat, but it's all getting ticked off. Foul ball here, a little wimpy hit there.
Yeah.
You're going to have more solid contact. It's not the ball going over the wall. Put the ball in play.
Of course, Volpe knocked one out of the yard on Saturday.
Yeah. What did you think of our guy, Keith McPherson, our new friend from WFAN, suggesting that Tommy DeVito would be the odd man out in New York should they draft Sanders?
Nah. Tommy DeVito's got a spot on that roster because he's Italian.
Can you imagine if Tommy DeVito ended up in Buffalo? He ended up here in Rochester.
Oh, my God. Don't tease me.
Like, Tommy, come on, sit down with us here, buddy.
Don't tease me.
We got lots of... Yeah, we're the number one pizza place in New York.
I know this is going to shock a lot of people, so I hope you're sitting down. I'm about to say something that I've never said before. Tommy DeVito is not a very good NFL quarterback.
Come on.
I'm just throwing it out there. I know you don't really come to us for hot takes, but I'm just going to throw that out there.
It reminds me of how, like, in the Bills drought, we would just kind of latch on to things that are fun. Hey, like a giant. Okay, we're not, but this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Look at his agent down there.
Galvanizes a fan base, gets people talking. You're not winning games because your quarterback stinks, but it's a fun story. Hey, look at Tommy DeVito's agent. Are you kidding me?
Hey, he lives at home with mom and dad. Hey,
of course he does, because he's Italian.
It's just like me, right? I'm living at home with mom and dad too. Nothing wrong with it. I can identify with that guy.
Oh, man.
What on?
We got to get to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. He's covering the Buffalo Bills. There's a lot to get to here. Not just, the big story, of course, is, they signed a punter. Kidding. Benford, the extension there is a big deal. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about these proposed rule changes and where Sean McDermott kind of finds himself here as a member of the competition committee and what the future of James Cook in Buffalo might be as well.
I think that last one, like the thing that's getting the national attention today, it's not too often like, hey, it's ESPN's NFL Live, and today, and there's Sean McDermott with the national media around him answering questions, getting peppered, and let's break that. Boy, this feels a little different. To us here in Western New York, that's fine. I think the Cook story is interesting because I don't know where this is going. Somebody does. I welcome your opinions, but I could see anything from, hey, I'll see you in September. I could see them making nice at some point.
It's going to a team like Carolina or the Raiders in less than 12 months. That's where it's going.
Or less than that danger.
Well,
like
maybe.
if the phone rings and a dumb Carolina. Funny how you pick up a team like that and an owner like, hey, you know what? We got the quarterback. We got this. We got a winnable division. Make the move. I'll pay the running back. Like, that's how Tepper would act. Like, would you do that for a second-round pick right now?
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. Ryan Talbot does a great job covering the team. We'll get his thoughts on what's being said and talked about at the NFL owners' meetings, including that Benford extension, including James Cook lack of an extension. We'll get to Ryan next here on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to Sports Update.
From the NFL owners' meetings, Bills head coach Sean McDermott and the competition committee recommending that the tush push be taken out of the game.
There's different forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So we're going to always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
Bills also signing a punter today, Brett Robbins, a 2023 sixth-round pick out of Cincinnati. We'll talk to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. He joins us next year in the Sports Bar. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles on their opening day, leading the Red Sox 4-3. They're in the 6th. White Sox leading the Twins 9-0. They go to the 8th. Also, the Royals leading in Milwaukee 5-0 in the 7th. No score between the Phillies and Rockies in the 5th. Rochester Red Wings opening day coming up tomorrow. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
We've got action from the NFL owners' meetings. Very Buffalo Bills-centric action to talk about with Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. As always, go with this time. Join us in the Sports Bar. Buddy, it's good to have you on. Benford getting signed, James Cook not getting an extension, and all this nonsense with the tush push and Sean McDermott. Good to have you on with us. And let's start with McDermott, because it feels like when pressed by the national media on his thoughts on this play, he comes off a little bit hypocritical and a little bit almost, I dare say, out of his league, talking about data that really doesn't exist and postures and all kinds of things. How do you think Sean McDermott came off here when being pressed about this proposed rule change?
Yeah, he talked about the fact that the safety element of it, but he acknowledged, like you said, there's really no data to support that right now. And when you really think about it, any play, injury can take place first and foremost. But second, this is not like a high-speed collision. This is essentially a quarterback sneak where you're getting pushed from behind to get those additional few yards. It's not the most dangerous play to me, in my opinion. That being said, we've seen the Bills get stuck with this a few times. We saw how it worked out for them in the AFC title game. They really did struggle in short situations when they tried their own version of the tush push or the QB sneak with a little bit of extra support. So maybe, too, McDermott's sitting there saying maybe it's run its course for the Bills, whereas, it seems like the Eagles are the only team that's truly running it with a high level of success in those meaningful moments.
We do have news this weekend, something that kind of dropped out of the sky, and you and Matt kind of did write a podcast almost on the spot there. Christian Benford signing with Buffalo, the extension. He will not be a free agent. And Ryan, I think we're all kind of applauding this move. Just what does this mean for the Bills, coming down the road here?
Yeah, it means the Bills have their number one cornerback locked up. And I say number one because he's played like it the last year and a half or two. But that isn't going to stop the Bills from going out and drafting another cornerback high in this draft class, first or second round potentially, to be that 1B to Benford's 1A. But it's great news for the Bills for a few reasons. One, you have him locked in on average at $19 million per season, which when you look at the going rate of these high-end cornerbacks, that's already coming in below market. He's about the 13th highest paid cornerback after this new deal in terms of, the average salary per year. We've seen J.C. Horn sign a $25 million deal. You saw the kid out of the Houston Texans sign a $30 million deal. You know that Sauce Gardner is going to probably eclipse the $30 million total. And you get Benford, who was unbelievable this past season in terms of the yards allowed per play, coming in at 19. So it's a great deal for the Bills. It addresses a major need in terms of that top-end talent. Now, obviously, you need to supplement that with some more picks in this draft to really find that number 2 cornerback option. Have someone that you can, right now push Dane Jackson for the job. And I still think maybe you can add a veteran or two as well post-draft.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, there are a couple of familiar names that are still free agents out there, if I'm not mistaken, that the Bills have, potentially available to them in Rasul Douglas and Trey White. Do you see either of those guys as options here? Or is it safe to assume that if they do use a high-round draft pick on a corner, that guy will be competing with Dane Jackson for a starting role come 2025?
Yeah, I think if they take a guy high, they're going to compete for the starting job, whether it's against Dane Jackson or one of those veterans that you mentioned. Yesterday, Brandon Beane said they have not shut the door on Rasul Douglas. I think when Douglas first hit free agency, I think there's probably a gap between what he was looking for and what the Bills were offering. And now, though, the longer you sit on this market, I think before long, your number has to come down if you want to sign with the team pre-draft or even just shortly after the draft based on a team that maybe misses out on a corner. But the fact that he's still sitting out there tells you that teams are a little skeptical based on his film and tape from 2024. He did not have the best season, especially after the way he looked coming in by the trade deadline in 2023, and kind of played lights out, created turnovers, made some big plays that just wasn't there for the Bills and for Rasul Douglas last season. Trey White, I'm not ready to say that he's just a vet minimum type of contract type of player, but I don't think it's too far off from that. So if you want to bring him in for depth, by all means do so. I just don't know what is left in the tank there. And I'll even throw in a third name of former Bills, Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah.
Older than Trey White, but played at a high level last year in Minnesota. We know how it ended the first time in Buffalo. He left because he wanted to play in national games on TV. Well, this Bills team's a lot different than the one he left. So if he wants a final swan song with the team that drafted him in the first round, that's another potential option.
Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, the Shout podcast as well, our guest here in the sports bar. Brandon Beane also commenting on, all right, the one guy who's due to become a free agent after next season, running back James Cook, and how for now his Beane's focus is on the draft, and it doesn't sound like anything is imminent here. And Ryan, I think it's an interesting story because, quite honestly, I don't know how this is going to play out. What do you think are the more likely scenarios here? What's your view on this situation?
Well, my view is that as soon as he went public with the contract demands, the gap between the two sides probably never closed because he doubled down on that $15 million number a few times on social media, where the Bills probably were not approaching that or maybe reaching that total. They might be at 10, 11, 12. Who knows? But there's that a couple $1 million gap there. So now that we sit here, Brandon Beane has pretty much said our focus is on the draft, and I truly believe that. I think that you're going to see James Cook come in here and play out the final year of his rookie deal. Could the Bills negotiate something in season? Absolutely. It's possible. We don't see that a ton, though, from this team. I think they're willing to let him play it out, and if he has a monster year, they're going to let him test free agency in the market. I don't necessarily think that they would use the franchise tag. It could be appealing if he is having an unbelievable year, but it's not something we've seen Brandon Beane in this Bills front office do much, if at all, in their tenure. So I just think that he's the way that his stance went, going public with it and not maybe budging off of that number, the Bills are going to let him play it out and let the chips fall where they may. In terms of the draft, I don't think they're going to necessarily go out and draft a running back high because you still do have Cook on the final year of his rookie deal. You just brought back Ty Johnson. They drafted Ray Davis a year ago. There's your top three right there. You have some other options on this roster as is for depth. Now, in the 2026 draft, maybe they have to replace James Cook. That's very well possible.
Ryan, what about another scenario? I mean, there's so many different ways that this could play out. We were speculating earlier, like, would James Cook hold out? Would he not show up to off-season work? Would he get fined by the team because he's upset at the team? I mean, Brandon Beane hasn't really had to deal with anything like this, short of maybe Jordan Poyer missing the first day of training camp a couple of years ago. What about the option of trading James Cook as we get to the NFL draft and replacing him with Kenneth Davis, Ty Johnson, and a rookie that you end up drafting because it's a deep running back class?
Well, I mean, it's possible the trade route. It's just I don't know what you're going to get in a trade for James Cook. And then you're sitting there saying, okay, if we got an early day 3 pick for James Cook, because I don't think you're going to be able to get a second-round pick for someone on the final year of a rookie deal despite how good he was. I'm not even sure about a third. Is that worth trading him away, who your best weapon, not named Josh Allen on offense, for the uncertainty of a rookie? It's possible, but I don't necessarily see it playing out that way. And then for the holdout, he's projected to make only about $5 million this year, so the holdout wouldn't last very long based on the fine system that the league has. So he could try to make his stance known, holding out for a very short period of time, but it wouldn't last very long.
Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, our guest here in the Sports Bar. Ryan, since we last spoke, we have the New England Patriots bringing in a familiar face, and, well, I guess they also brought in Mac Hollins, but talking about Steph Diggs going to New England, and funny how just like basically one calendar year, you have them going from Buffalo to Houston, now to New England. How much do you think that will help the Patriots? Is the gap closing between Buffalo and New England?
Not really. I think the gap for second place in the division might be widening between the Patriots and then the Jets and the Dolphins. I do like a lot of what the Patriots have done, even if they've had to overspend on a few players and positions. I just don't think they're a threat to the Bills just yet. And the Stephon Diggs addition really doesn't move the bar for me whatsoever. This is someone coming off of a serious injury. I know he said he's ahead of schedule. I remember Von Miller saying the same thing a few years ago. And then you saw that he really wasn't productive. Different role, different weights, different, asks of what you need to do, but he still needs to be able to cut at the wide receiver position and run those routes. I don't know when he's going to get on the field and look like the Stephon Diggs that we've come to know. It might not be until late in the season. So, the one thing I will say is kudos to him and his agent for getting a deal, which in my opinion is essentially a 1 year, $26 million, because that's the amount of guarantees that are in the deal, contract from the Patriots after suffering that injury with Houston and knowing that he's getting up there in age. I think that they did a great job of finding a team that was going to give him a good chunk of change, because I'm not sure you're ever going to see year 2 or year 3 of that deal come to fruition in New England.
Ryan, it's the last day of March. The calendar is going to flip tomorrow, and our gaze will look to the sunset, the horizon of the NFL draft at the end of the month. And we talked about it. Well, what will the Bills do? We know that there's holes at corner. We know that defensive line feels to be like an area of need as well. And we know that, you and others like you are doing a lot of draft prep, looking at a lot of mocks, doing your own mock drafts. How do you see this all shaking out with the Bills at 30?
Yeah, it's obviously going to be best player available, but it wouldn't shock me or surprise me if that best player available is a defensive tackle, edge rusher, or cornerback, which, are three of Buffalo's biggest needs right now, especially when you look at the suspensions to Hoyt, who's going to be a big contributor off the edge, and Ogunjobi to a much lesser extent because he's more of a 3-tech behind Ed Oliver and in the mix with Dwayne Carter. But you still need that 1-tech opposite Ed Oliver. Daquan Jones has kind of fallen off. He's looking his age in terms of the way he's playing. So when you're sitting there at pick 30, a Kenneth Grant would be appealing. A Harmon out of Oregon, if he's sitting there, is certainly worthwhile. There's some undersized players too. It's not a surprise that some of the draft prospects that have been vocal about talking to Buffalo are on that D line. Landon Jackson, a round 2 type of player, says that he's talked to the Bills about 8 times in the draft process. Joshua Farmer says he talks to the Bills every day. There are guys that they clearly like and could perhaps add on day 2 of that draft, but there's going to be guys at 30 that I think they could fall in love with as well if the right player falls. Cornerback's not as deep or as plentiful, but if the right player is there or available at 30 or just before, it would not shock me if the Bills got a little bit aggressive and traded up for their guy.
Did the Bills do enough at the wide receiver position? Josh Palmer signed. You've got Laviska Shenault to, maybe he shows something at camp. Where I'm going with this, Ryan, is what's the possibility that, hey, there's actually a receiver at 30 or somewhere within striking distance. You've got the speed of those 2 guys from Texas, for example, here. Do you see the Bills investing at the wide receiver position in this draft?
I do. I could see it with one of their second-round picks or one of their early picks on day 3 of the draft in the 4th round, since they don't have a 3rd-round pick right now, or they could even trade into the 3rd round with all the ammunition that they have. I'm not sold on pick 30, though. That's the one spot where I'm sitting there saying I don't necessarily think that they're going to go with a wide receiver. I think Golden will be off the board at that point. He's one name that people thought maybe could fall in that 1st round, but his stock's been soaring. Isaiah Bond, the Pro Football Focus guys, have a podcast, and they were talking today about red flags off the field and comparing his red flags, that being Isaiah Bond's, to Jermaine Burton of Cincinnati's. And, Burton was talent-wise listed as one of the best receivers in this draft class, and he had a disastrous season in Cincinnati, a lot of off-the-field issues there. Wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't even make their roster in year two, despite his talent. So the red flag part worries me, so I don't see the Bills necessarily being in on Bond at 30. If he falls far enough in the draft, who knows there. But there are players. There's a Kyle Williams in this draft that I absolutely love his skill set and his game. His stock is starting to soar a little bit, so he could be a round two type of player. Jalen Royals is a player that I really like too, day two pick. And then there's going to be guys on, day three. Ty Felton projects more of a slot player, but he has deep speed if that's what they're looking for. So I do expect them, though, to add or address the wide receiver position. I don't necessarily think it's at pick 30, though. I think that they feel like with the talent that they've added and that what they have, they're going to be more than okay to get by. Because Josh Allen proved last year with that everyone eats mentality that guys are going to step up in meaningful moments, and you're going to get a bigger contribution this year from Dalton Kincaid as long as he's healthy.
Ryan, amongst all of the offseason flurry that the Bills have given us, Matt Milano getting the restructure and being able to test free agency after this upcoming year. And I'm bringing it up because you're in the blast zone closer than we are, being in the backyard of UB. Sean Dolak is a name that I think a lot of people in Buffalo are talking about. Is that a name that Bills fans and that Sean McDermott is paying attention to, because we kind of know that he has a type? We kind of know he likes those homegrown talent as well to bring into Buffalo. What are your thoughts on the linebacker out of UB?
Yeah, love his game. Obviously was highly productive at UB. Didn't get invited to any of the postseason bowl games, which was just absolutely stunning. The Senior Bowl came out and said he didn't quite meet their threshold of what they're looking for, which, right or wrong, I at least respect the fact that they addressed it. There's so many other games out there, East-West Shrine Game, Hula Bowl, and the list goes on. And the fact that none of them even invited Dolak out is a bit embarrassing to those games and the fact that they didn't invite him whatsoever. He comes out at his pro day, and his size. He's a little undersized, but that has never deterred the Bills in terms of the linebacker position. They don't look for a certain height or a certain weight. Can you play ball? And Sean Dolak can play ball. He's shown that. He tested extremely well. His relative athletic score came in over a 9 out of 10. Every linebacker that Sean McDermott has pretty much drafted in his tenure here with the Bills has been in the high 8s to the low 9 range. Dolak fits that criteria. Round 5 of this draft, it would not surprise me whatsoever if the Bills used a pick on Sean Dolak.
Question that's a little off topic, I guess, but I'll ask it to you, Ryan, then maybe ask for Danger's input, because we have Pete Guelli also, who is the CEO of the Bills and the Sabres, for that matter, and giving kind of an update on the stadium. The one good thing about the stadium, it seems like everything is either on schedule or ahead of schedule, like 50% done, to the point where, all right, what does this look like? And we learned some timeline things here today. Learned that, all right, well, the Bills Stadium in March of the following year that they open will be knocked down, the current one, Highmark. We also learned that ideally you'd like to open up not with a Bills preseason game, but with some sort of event, whether that's a concert or something else. And do you have kind of a pick there? Have you thought about it? For example, Danger, did you know this? Silver Stadium to Frontier Field for the Rochester Red Wings, they opened up with a concert. The Beach Boys.
At Frontier Field?
At Frontier Field.
Okay.
Which, I don't know, at that time, were they still relevant? Yeah, you need something bigger than the Beach Boys, I would say here.
Yes, the Beach Boys are doing free concerts at the Seneca Allegheny Casino every year, so definitely need a little bit higher than the Beach Boys at this point in time. Maybe if they bring out John Stamos with them, no. I think the Beach Boys are out for sure. I pitched something outside of the box. My son's a huge wrestling fan. I grew up a huge wrestling fan. WWE, like Money in the Bank or something like that always runs in July. That would be a kind of a cool way to open up a stadium, get a ton of eyes on it because it's broadcast on all these, their pay-per-view format or on their apps, whether it's Peacock or Netflix, whatever they're doing that year. You get so many outside eyes on it, and then you're going to get thousands of people in to actually check out this stadium ahead of time too. A concert's probably the safe play, probably what the Bills will end up doing, but I thought that would be kind of an interesting way to go about it.
You know what? I was ready to pitch the idea of a concert, big superstar, whoever might be on tour, the flavor of the month. But your idea actually makes more sense if you're the Bills organization and you're able to get money and also showcase this new venue to a wider audience. I kind of like the idea of opening it with a WWE event. I think that's awesome.
Well, I'd ask both of you guys. You think the NFL would want to, hey, the first time, come on in, everybody, and the eyeballs won't be on a TV partner? Ryan, I don't know. Is that a TV partner when that's going to be aired, or is that a pay-per-view event?
It would be streamed right now as long as everything stays the same on Peacock Network, which is an NBC affiliate. So the league obviously has Sunday Night Football there. They could come up with some kind of way to make that work, make both sides happy. I do get that point though, and the pushback in terms of national audience and national eyes. The first time you probably want it to be a Bills game, whereas a concert, you're not going to have to worry about it streaming elsewhere. I just know that some of these newer stadiums, when they first open up, that's what a lot of what the WWE does is they go there. Allegiant Stadium, when that opened up a few years ago, they had a big pay-per-view, or they've had a few there since then. So it's just something on the radar. A summer event would be kind of cool to do and consider, but if they don't want it to be something that's broadcast, then a concert's the right play.
Now my brain is working. I'm trying to think of who. I mean, impossible to know what the world looks like in 2026. But
something Billy Joel, something mainstream where
too old.
No,
too old.
Too old.
Too old. Too old. I think it's too old.
Paul McCartney.
Too old. Need something more. I'm thinking like a Taylor Swift kind of artist. But I don't know that she's touring, and I don't know that that's going to – but that kind of, guaranteed sellout, like where you could do – I mean, Luke Bryan sold that place out 2 nights in a row. That's a younger artist that sold out Highmark Stadium 2 nights at Highmark Stadium. They'll find somebody. I just don't know that it's going to be a country star. I don't know what the world looks like in 2026, but the concert route would be interesting.
No, I agree completely, and you're right. Who knows who will be the hot artist at that point in time, but – I'm sure the Bills are already doing the legwork and the footwork. Like you said, that stadium, the way they were able to get that put together and put up was pretty phenomenal. It felt like every week that the Bills had a home game this past year, you'd look across the street and you'd say, man, they've made a ton of progress just in the last week or 2 weeks, however many weeks went between games. And now they're saying the last piece of steel is being assembled, I think, this upcoming week or maybe it's in early April. They have made great timing on this. There's not going to be any delays, it seems like. So kudos to them for getting this done and ready. So that way when the Bills kick off, not this upcoming season, but the following year, that new stadium is going to be ready to go.
Ryan, Day Layton saying this. Happy birthday, bud. How was it with the family?
Hey, thank you. It was great. We had a great birthday with some friends and family.
32. I mean, it's just
yeah, right.
crazy. I mean, you feel like when we just were nursing
nine,
you when you first come into the sports bar.
Yeah.
Great having you on with us, man. What are you working on this week on the Shout podcast and at Syracuse.com that we can check out?
Yeah, keeping an eye on draft prospects. We're starting to get some information on Zooms and things like that. I'll do another mock draft in the next few weeks. Matt is on the ground in Florida for the owners' meeting, so he was there for the Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott talks. We'll have some more fallout from that. And then we're going to start getting ready for the draft, which is sneaking up on us less than a month away. We have a live show at Wingnets the week before. We have a live show at Turning Stone Casino the night of the draft, night 1. So we're excited about that too. So we're just kind of getting ready for all those big events coming up.
Yeah. Fantastic. Love it. Love all of it, Ryan. Thanks for making time for us and getting caught up. We'll do it again real soon.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks.
There's Ryan Talbot, Syracuse.com, covering the Buffalo Bills, from NewYorkUpstate.com and the Shout podcast.
Because you can find any concert playlist online for fun. So Frontier Field, which is now Innovative Field, opened up July 11th, 1996 with the Beach Boys. And here's their set list, which was finished off by Surfin' Safari, Surf City, Surfing USA.
So I have an unconscious bias towards the Beach Boys. I hate the Beach Boys, and not because I don't think they're talented or their songs aren't good. I am emotionally scarred from the Beach Boys because when I was in grade school, every year they do like the thing where you got to go up on stage and do a dance or sing a song or do something like that for talent show or whatever it is. So as a class, we did surf and safari, and the teacher's like, "Oh, it'd be so cute if everybody just dresses in their, their beach wear and their whole." Like, I live in Minnesota. I don't have any beach. What are you talking about, beach? What is a beach? We're up here in the frigid cold of northern Minnesota, and we had to do a routine to that song, Surf and Safari. And dude, let me tell you, I heard that song so many times through the course of that. It scarred me. It scarred me for life. I never want to hear the Beach Boys. I am out on the Beach Boys.
Surfer Girl is another one they played.
Don't care.
Don't care.
Don't want it. Don't want anything to do with it.
No
disrespect. No disrespect.
Oh, who cares?
But I know they're talented. I know their music is beloved. Not for me. Not for me, pal. It conjures up nightmares. I was so against being on stage and doing that song and dance as a second grader or third grader or whatever it was. Just scarred me in grade school.
I guess because you put some thought into that. Anybody's got any suggestions? The fan Rochester, like what concert should open up that stadium? Danger, it's got to be something that appeals to like every generation, right? It can't just be Gen X. It can't be just boomers.
I agree. It's got to be a mass appeal, massive artist. Like in Los Angeles, they opened up the Clippers Dome, the new what is it, Intuit Dome?
Intuit Dome.
They opened that up with Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Like that's a pretty good show. That's a pretty good show, and I think you get a lot of people to come out for that. Now, it depends what you think. What do you think Buffalonians would come out to? I think more than anything, they're going to come out because it's the new venue.
Correct.
And the artist is almost secondary, so you can't hit them with something too hard. Like you can't say, "Hey, Metallica's got to be there," because that'll turn a lot of people off. Not a lot of people are into that.
I would think, and just hear me out, isn't like one of the benefits, and I'm not pitching this, folks, but if you're going to invest in the PSL, you don't have to go through the rigmarole of refresh. I'm trying to get a concert ticket. Hey, do you want to buy your seat or not for this concert? Isn't that the way it's supposed to work?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so wouldn't you want to kind of give an example like, hey, we're going to open up with this artist coming up in June 2026. And you know what? If you're a PSL owner, you want to buy the ticket? Great. You don't have to worry about, jumping through hoops online.
Right. Yes. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. Or you buy the ticket and
flip it
in the secondary market. But that'll be a memorable night, whoever the artist is that they decide, whatever the event is. I do like the WWE idea, though. I think that I don't know that it'll fly. I don't know that they would do that.
Not a chance in hell. No way the NFL would be like, oh, we're going to open up with a competitor?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nutsy by Terry Pagula. That would show some, that would be a big middle finger to Goodell and everybody at the NFL.
How about
and Jerry?
We book a yacht rock review. What do you think? A little Steely Dan, Michael McDonald. Does not appeal to everyone.
No. William Hung. We'll get William Hung. Doesn't matter who's going.
Didn't you meet him? Didn't he come to a summer jam?
Yeah, we had William Hung in a summer. Here's my quick William Hung story. William Hung, couple things when he came to PXY Summer Jam. If you don't remember William Hung,
right.
American Idol, you know that show. Some of you may not, but it early 2000s was the show. It must-see TV every week. You had to know who your American Idol was going to be. Kelly Clarkson year one. Carrie Underwood was in there. And, along the way, it became cool to showcase somebody who didn't really have talent but wanted to be at the audition anyways to try and wow or get the attention of the judges, and William Hung was really the first guy. Remember, the pants on the ground guy was another guy, but William Hung was the original, and he would go up and do his audition, and he would do Shebangs by Ricky Martin, and he had a whole dance with it and the whole thing. And he didn't, he wasn't like a true American Idol contestant. He was just somebody who auditioned, but he went viral before being viral was being viral.
The producers recognized, oh my gosh, this is so bad, it's great. I don't know in this day and age if you did something like that, even if they signed off on it. But
everybody does it every day on social media now.
Yeah.
There's a million William Hungs on social media in the world that we live in today, but William Hung was one of the first ones to kind of go viral for being awkward and, just bad. So we got him to come to a PXY Summer Jam at Innovative Field, back then Frontier Field, and he called me. He had my cell, and he called me, and he said, yeah, Mike, it's William. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, William Hung. I go, yeah, I gathered William Hung. I knew it was you. What's up? His mom, I guess, smashed her hand in the van as she was closing the van.
Oh.
Like she hurt her hand at Summer Jam. And I also remember, and I can't remember which, it might have been at one of the Webster schools, had the cheerleading squad up on stage when he performed She Bangs in front of thousands and thousands of people.
So wait, you had to take William Hung's mom to like
I don't know
what
what we ended up doing with her. He just basically called me just to check in and say, "Yeah, we're here." And my mom smashed her hand in the door. I don't know what happened. I'm like, okay, cool. Everything's running on time. The trains are on the tracks, except for William Hung's mom's hand. Aside from that, everything went off without a hitch. That it doesn't really matter who shows up. I think no matter what, it's going to sell out. But you get a bigger name. You see who's on tour next year and work out a little new Highmark tour date on there as well. Appreciate Ryan Talbot stopping by and sharing his thoughts on the owners' meetings, these rule changes. We're going to get more into that here with Happy Hour on the way next on The Fan. You can join the sports bar. Our lines are open at 866-4FAN. 866-4326. Sean McDermott speaking about that tush-push rule proposal. Brandon Bean talking about James Cook not negotiating a deal with him in this window. The window is closed right now to negotiate a deal with James Cook. Lots to unpack from what we've heard over the last 24, 48 hours from Florida and the NFL owners' meetings. On the way next on The Fan.
WBEE HD2 Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
From the NFL owners' meetings, Bills head coach Sean McDermott and the competition committee looking to take the tush-push out of the game. Brandon Beane also speaking, pleased that business with Christian Benford is done.
Glad to get Christian done, and we agreed with him, and then we'll hopefully get him in town midweek to get him signed. But like I said, it came to a place that both sides thought was fair, and so excited to extend him with all the other guys that we've been able to get done.
The Bills did make a signing today, a punter. His name's Brad Robbins. He was originally with the Bengals in 2023. On the Major League scoreboard, we have one game that went final. The White Sox over the Twins by 9-0 score. Orioles leading the Red Sox 5-3 in the 8th. Royals up on the Brewers 10-1 there in the 9th. Rockies have taken a 1-0 lead in Philadelphia. The Mets are in Florida tonight to take on the Marlins. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We tip off with the NCAA tournament. All 4 number 1 seeds are through to the Final Four.
South Carolina and UCLA are the first teams into the women's Final Four.
I'd like to compare the torpedo bat to the tush push.
Oh, they have agreed to terms with Christian Benford on a 4-year extension worth $76 million.
Just because we don't have James signed today doesn't mean next year we still can't get him done.
And Frozen 4,
Mike Danger.
I'm going to test my age here over the course of the next 6 weeks or so, Gino. I mean, stamina is going to be tested. Fatigue is going to be a factor. We're going to power through it. I actually feel invigorated because I know my limits. I've developed a tolerance in my 50 years. I think I'll be okay.
Gene Battaglia.
Mike Danger, don't you dare call Met fans misfits.
You know, given my track record this afternoon, I could call you a lot worse than a misfit, my friend. Damn right they are.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It's happy hour. Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us, listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We've got our stream up on the YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Like and subscribe while you're there. You can also go back with the Odyssey app. You can listen to any part of the show that you may have missed, or on YouTube, you can go back and watch any part of the show that you may have missed. And may I humbly suggest you go back to Keith McPherson's conversation with us in our 3 o'clock hour, where he gave us the conclusion to the Take of the Year nominee from last year, the dust-up with John Heyman that he had on the air at the end of last year's baseball season.
It's a conclusion. Maybe there's another chapter, but that audio is just, I think it's a lesson for anybody in business. Hey, your emotions are getting in the way. And to hear, can we hear that again? It was a Take of the Year. Keith McPherson, KM to AM is the show. Comes on after the Brooklyn Nets or the Yankees, depending on the season, and he'll walk you to whoever's doing the overnight. I think he does a great job breaking down things post-game. And this was a Friday night around free agency time.
Yeah, December.
Yeah, and he had John Heyman on, and this is an example of, hey, he's just trying to have some fun, and the interview goes terribly wrong.
I've broken a lot of stories. I think the reason that got such play is because people believe everything I tweet. I've had 100,000 tweets, and, you get one that was wrong, and it did say appears, and I know I rushed it, and it was a big mistake, and I regret it, but it's 2 years later.
No regrets.
I think it's like at some point, I think someone could probably drop it if they're a nice person.
What I think is, one, it just like how I introduced you. Everybody in baseball knows who you are. So, one, it's a credit to your work, your following, and how.
By the way, I won't be going on with you again. The whole thing has been a disaster.
That's okay.
I can't even believe you said that to question my integrity.
Are you being serious right now?
I'm being serious, yeah.
John.
Asking me if I'm getting a cut because I have a relationship with an agent. That's outrageous. I know you're not a journalist. You don't know anything about this. I know you don't, but that's an outrageous comment. You should know that
it's
much.
Friday night at 8:30, John.
You should know that much.
And I am
I'm
not.
done with you.
I am not
I'm
taking
done with
this that
WFAN.
serious.
Goodbye.
John, thank you for
I
joining
can't
us,
even
John.
believe it.
Thank you,
I can't
John.
even believe it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. He's got to get to bed. I did not expect it to go that way.
So that goes viral, as you would imagine.
Yeah. So we had Keith McPherson on our show today, first time, and hey, The Yankees are one of the stories in baseball, and you'd say it's the bats, and we could talk about that a little bit. But the Yankees, it was kind of an off season that maybe did Boston catch up to them in regards to the AL East. We had that conversation. Maybe the Mets are not up to where they were last year. We talked about the Giants and, of course, Aaron Rodgers. We had to ask him about that. Like, afterward, just ask Keith a simple question, like, Did he reach out to you? Did you reach out to him? And the way Keith kind of explained it was, well, I go to a lot of games. I go to the All-Star game. I go to spring training. I'm going to bump into him at some point. And sure enough, spring training this year, Yankees, Legends Field. And since the games are on WFAN, Dave Sims is the new voice of the Yankees and Susan Waldman. And since it's spring training, quite often, Danger, they'll invite in, hey, and look who's coming in. You hear him on weeknights. Here's Keith McPherson, KM to AM. So he does calls the seventh inning, whatever it is. Exiting the broadcast booth. Coming out of the booth, there he is. John Heyman.
Face to face.
Face to face. So Keith puts his hand up in the air, like, hey, I've been trying to draw your attention. Heyman puts his head down and walks away.
Coward. Absolute
He
coward.
knows who he is.
Yeah. Absolute coward. But kind of what you would expect. Fits the profile. Small guy. Small, insecure man. Just small, insecure, little baseball writer who takes himself way too seriously.
Well, dude, you're the one who rushed it. Arson Judge to the Giants, okay? First of all, that's not his name. Second of all, he didn't go to the Giants.
Well, I think, from that clip that, him implying that Keith McPherson isn't a nice person for bringing it up. It's like, no, Keith McPherson's a pretty nice guy. We can attest to that now, having had him on the show. Great guy.
You made a mistake. You own it. You move on.
But how McPherson was, explained to us how he was prepared to deal with Heyman, you couldn't have written it a better way. He was ready to go up to him and apologize to say, hey, look, I didn't mean to upset you. My show is meant to be fun, and we don't take ourselves too seriously all the time. And I'm sorry if that somehow upset you or ruined your credibility. And the second thing is, he wanted to thank him because of that outburst. More people know who Keith McPherson is on WFAN, and it grew his audience, which is exactly the way you should have done it. I'm humble. I apologize. I'm humble. Thank you. Take the high road. Heyman doesn't even give him the opportunity to do it because he's a coward. He's a coward. I can't believe it. I'm done with WFAN.
It's like he's in the interview. Okay, it's Friday night at 8:30. He's like saying, we're not being serious,
right?
here.
You can't possibly be upset at me, but he was, and he is, and he's a coward. But Keith was great, and you're right, Gino. He did a great job talking. I mean, maybe a little bit of Yankee bias showing there because he is a Yankees guy, and he talks about the Yankees and he talks about the Mets, but these torpedo bats seem to be what everybody in the world of sports wants to talk about today.
Yeah, so basically it's this. You can only have a bat that's 42 inches long. You can only have the weight, but nothing says the weight has to be right at the end of the bat. And the Yankees, by the way, aren't the first one to do this. Somebody else did this. But since more as a team, and because now you have the MIT scientists putting this out, and also, okay, to any Yankee reporter, did y'all not pick up on this in spring training? Like, what were you doing? Or was this some big surprise? I would have thought that at some point, be like, hey, that might be a story here in spring training.
Well, I think it becomes a story when you hit, how many home runs did they hit on Saturday? Do you remember?
I do remember. 9.
9 times.
Then it becomes a story, right? And this is unbelievable. How is Aaron Judge doing what he's doing? Also, let's not forget, it is Yankee Stadium. I mean, it is kind of a park that is made for the long ball.
Also, and I think Keith brought up a point, it was the Brewers.
Yeah.
Like, you're trotting out Nestor Cortez, who's damaged goods, I'm sorry at this point, and no, he wasn't coming back to haunt the Yankees, so sure, they were serving up meatballs to him all weekend.
I know that his comments on the Mets cut you a little bit. He made some points that you can't you think about it and you're like, ooh.
The idea that you spent all this money on Soto and the rotation, literally your opening day starter is the guy who began the season as the closer for the Yankees, but then lost his job real quick.
Yeah.
Holmes.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough. But we'll see.
They're not good for anybody who wants competitive balance in this sport. I'm sorry.
Well, what are you willing to give up for that competitive balance? Are you willing to give up a lockout?
Dad, it was actually the owners of the Giants that said, you know what, we got to share this. And the sport really, really, really grew. But you don't have World Series championships for the Giants or the Cowboys or any big market. Are they willing to do that? And if I'm the Dodgers or Yankees or any big market, like,
no.
Right. No. If anything, hey, spend your money, Pittsburgh. So as I'm talking this through, maybe my point isn't holding up. The Dodgers, in a weird way, are good for the game.
Well, it is to what Keith said earlier, the deferred payments are going to be a problem down the road, and maybe it will end up in some kind of work stoppage when it's all said and done. I have zero confidence that Manfred can keep peace between the players and the owners. At minimum, I'd say that they're good for baseball because we all have a common villain, if you want to view them as such. The team that goes out and buys a championship. They assemble an all-star roster, just like the Yankees used to do that made everybody hate the Yankees for so many years. So it might be that. I just want to root for Shohei, and it's hard because I know he plays for a team of all-stars. He plays for the villain.
5-0 the Dodgers, by the way.
Oh, no, they're winning 157 games. I'm not backing down. You think I'm backing down? When they lose their first game, I'm not backing down, okay? The Dodgers are winning 157 games with their $9.3 trillion payroll.
They're losing to the Marlins, to the Rockies, to the Diamondbacks, to the Giants, and to the Athletics.
Mark my words. You've got it. It's a 162-game season. They're winning 157 games, and they're 5-0. They're on pace. They're on pace to go undefeated, Gene. I don't know if you saw that or not. And what's Judge's pace for home runs at this?
200 something.
It's going to be great. Can't wait to watch Aaron Judge hit over 100 home runs this year. It's going to be awesome.
I'm just looking at the Dodgers schedule, and they play the Marlins at the end of the month.
Okay.
So that would be.
I don't think the Marlins get over on them at the end of the month. I think it's later in the season.
Oh,
they're gonna beat the Dodgers in front of like dozens of fans in Miami.
They go to Arizona. Is that where they lose their first game in the month of May? May 8th through the 11th.
May might be when they drop their first.
Okay.
I think May. We'll get through the entire month of April, and then May is when they might drop their first to Arizona. The big news out of the NFL owners meetings, for better or worse, is Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott kind of bumbling his way through a question and answer scrum with the media.
We have fun with this during the season. We call him McDermott McLies, and he'll tell you things. He doesn't get challenged by the local media as he should. But considering the Buffalo Bills ran this play, only Philadelphia ran it more, but Buffalo had great success. To the fact where Sean McDermott called it their best play.
Yeah.
He called it his words. So wait a second. What happened? Why are you in favor of getting rid of this play now? Well, health and safety. Okay, well, but we don't have the data on that. Then how can you say it's health and safety? Do you need more data? Well, I'm not a doctor. Okay, yeah. All right.
At minimum, he sounds like a hypocrite. At minimum. Because you're talking about a play that is being proposed to be phased out, but you run the play right behind the Eagles, the team that runs it the second most out of all the NFL teams. So a little bit hypocritical there, but it just seems like this was something that he wasn't really prepared to talk about in any sort of depth.
No, like normally, right, the NFL owners meetings, today the breakfast started out with the AFC coaches, and the way it works is you have a big table. Think of like a wedding table, right, where you have 12 people around it. It's just the head coach, and then hey, you could sit down and talk. Well, who did everybody want to talk to this morning?
McDermott.
So it wasn't like.
But it's also amidst the reports that there was a bit of a heated conversation with McDermott, McVay, and the Eagles.
And again, that's coming from the NFL Network. That there was a spirited or whatever it was conversation last night. Howie Roseman, Sean McDermott, the two butting heads maybe, or McDermott, no, that was not it at all. We were just having a conversation. Okay, okay. Well, I wasn't there. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I I don't like how it looks for Sean McDermott. Listen yourself. This is 2 minutes of Sean McDermott being asked questions about the proposal to eliminate the tush push from the NFL.
Dove deeper into more of the data on it and, just thought more about it as well. And my position hasn't really changed at all. I feel where I'm most concerned is, even though there's not significant data out there to this point, my biggest concern is the health and safety of the players, first and foremost.
What are you seeing with the health and safety of the players? Since, as you said, there is really no data to say there's injuries. Like, what are you seeing?
I think anytime you get in, it's concerned about the force, added force, number one, and then the posture of the players. Being asked to execute that type of play, that's where my concern comes in.
Do you think you'll continue to run the play if it remains, and you have concerns about the safety? Do you think you'll continue to run it? Because I think you ran it quite a bit last year.
A form of it, right? A form of it. So I think it's a loose term, really, in terms of what defines a tush push. So there's different forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So we're gonna always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
There's no actual health and safety data showing that there's any problem with it after we've seen, over 300-something snaps, specifically in Philadelphia. Then how much more data do you need? Is it the hope that there's going to be injury that those would be opposed to it?
Well, number one, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get too deep into that situation there in terms of how much data, how much sample. I don't think that's really always the best way to go. I think is when you're looking at, there's other data out there that suggests when you're in a posture like we're talking about, that can lead to serious injury. And I think being responsible and proactive in that regard is the right way to go.
Terrible. Just terrible.
Wow.
A terrible, terrible look.
Wow.
It's like you have the Buffalo media eating out of the palm of his hand, and the moment he has national reporters challenging him on the BS that's coming out of his mouth, he doesn't know how to respond.
He snaps and goes to the "I'm not a doctor" card.
Well, the question is fair. What data exists? Are you hoping that somebody gets hurt? Is that the data that you're talking about? Because there is no data of anybody getting hurt on this play. If you don't want to run the play because you're afraid of injury, don't run the play. The Chiefs, AFC champions, don't run the play. Why? Because Pat Mahomes got injured on a quarterback sneak years ago, and they don't want to do that. Which leads to your interesting.
Well, here's my take is that McVay and McDermott were led to believe the committee, and the committee does their things. No. I'm doing puppets. They're puppets.
Yes.
They're puppets. What does Roger Goodell want? What do the networks want? Is that aesthetically? I listen to the data of, okay, do people kind of click off when that play comes up? There's probably data on that.
The Eagles Commanders fiasco in the NFC Championship game, the S show that was that, I think, was the breaking point. That's what led to where we are today. Right. I think everybody was fine with it until you saw how many offsides in a row in an attempt to stop the tush push. We're not going to let you get this play off. We're going to try and jump it every time, and it leads to points. It was an absolute debacle.
Also, I do think, right, that Terry Pegula is the owner that wants to be heard. And even though, okay, we don't have the dysfunction at all on One Bills Drive, as we do, say, at KeyBank Arena, Terry Pegula just wrote the biggest check ever, okay, for Josh Allen. If Terry Pegula says, no more tush push, I don't want him taking any extra shots, then it's out of the thing. Danger, how do we go from December, 1st and goal against the Rams, you can't run this unless you score. Oh, you didn't score. Tick, 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 tick. It cost you the game. Sean McDermott postgame. Well, it's our best play on offense. How do you go from your best play on offense now to, hey, we need to get rid of this?
Yeah. It's complete hypocrisy, and I think it speaks to something more sinister at play, and you're describing these guys as puppets. It's absolutely what it is.
Just be honest. With McDermott, sometimes it's a problem, okay? And like you said, Danger, nobody in Buffalo media will chess McDermott up, because then you have a price to pay.
Right. I just think that for him to be honest is an impossibility. He can't be honest in this situation, because being honest shows that his role is fraudulent in the competition committee. Who cares that you're on the competition committee? You can be bought with an owner telling you this needs to be done this way, or the commissioner saying, you know what, we need to get rid of situations like we had in Philly with DC and Philly in the NFC Championship there, because that was embarrassing for the league.
Or all he can say, and nobody could say anything, is the quarterback is the most important position in our sport. We pay these athletes the most money. We need to protect them like anything else.
He could say that, but again, he's a hypocrite. Because if you believe that, then you do what Kansas City does, and you don't call that play. The Bills called it just second most team in the NFL to call that play. So he can't win in this situation. He can't be honest. And if he tries to be honest, he at minimum looks like a hypocrite, which he does inadvertently here anyways. It's terrible. It's not a good look, just clumsy.
Yeah, he's getting roasted right
now.
Yeah,
he should. He should. I mean, I think Buffalo media lulls him into a state of comfort, and then when you have national media that they're not gonna buy into your BS. They want to know what data exists.
Well, okay, then how much data? I'm not a doctor.
Okay. All right. So now we know that you're full of S. You don't know. The only reason why you're proposing this is because somebody got to you. Whoever that might have been. Somebody got to you. Somebody got to McVay. Hey, look, maybe this is a 0 because it doesn't pass. You need at least 24 owners to vote to move on from it. We know the Eagles aren't going to move on from it. I would hope the Bills would not move on from it, because I think it is one of their best plays.
I think they're moving on from him. I think that's part of it here too, Danger.
Box wine bet?
Oh, I can't do that.
Oh! So when we get on the air tomorrow, will we know if the tush push has been banned?
Yes, because the NFL owners meetings wrap up tomorrow.
Okay.
So
the voting is tomorrow.
Yeah. So Matt Perino, full disclosure, Matt Perino always joins us Tuesdays at 3:30, and his flight he'll be in the air. So what we're going to do tomorrow is we are going to, before he gets on the flight, it's probably going to be from whatever airport, we'll be talking to Matt Perino and get his insight on all this mess.
I listened to Brandon Beane, who also spoke at the NFL owners meetings. I listened to Brandon Beane speaking on James Cook, and I just keep reminding myself that this could be the last season of James Cook in Buffalo.
The idea that Brandon Beane didn't shut the door, but at least, no, we're moving on to the draft. Wow. Okay. Brandon Beane getting Christian Benford done. Here it leaves James Cook. And why I think this is an interesting story is I can't forecast how this is going to go.
This is Brandon Beane earlier on James Cook.
His reps and him put it out there that we did talk, so I'm not sharing anything new. It didn't lead to anything as far as, closing in on a deal. And so we moved on to the guys that, we were more on the same page with. And, at this point, Sal, we're on to the draft. Once we got Benford done, and I don't see us doing any deals anytime soon. We're going to focus on the draft and getting our cap in order, planning for how we cut the 53 down, because like I've told you guys, we got a plan for that as well. So, but again, just because we don't have James signed today doesn't mean next year we still can't get him done before he gets to free agency.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's play this out, Danger.
Yeah, sure.
Like if you're looking at all the scenarios, I guess scenario is, all right, at any point, like if James Cook's representative is called up Brandon Beane, okay, we're going to do the number. I'm sure that conversation could be sparked back up. I'm going to say that's remote at this point.
I think just the first thing he's saying, hey, his representatives mentioned that we already spoke, so I'm not breaking any news there. Him saying that the way he said it, he doesn't like that his reps are talking about how they had a meeting with the Bills about James Cook.
We should also point out that James Cook has hired a rookie agent. This is somebody who doesn't handle anybody else. So I think that's kind of worth noting that there's kind of a protocol give and take. But Brandon Beane, if he requests that everything is kept quiet and James Cook is going out there $15 million.
He doesn't want to deal with the negotiating through the media, through social media. He's not doing that. It's Brandon Beane. He's not doing that. He gets all these deals done, all these extensions done, and it all happens behind closed doors just the way it should be, just the way he wants it to be. So the moment you go on social media, now you've got a bad taste in your mouth. And if his representation is, documenting all of this, well, we met with the Bills today. He doesn't want people to know that you met with them today because it's going to result in, well, we're far apart, and that's where they are. And I don't see that gap, getting any shorter. I think what you see, we can list off the scenarios, but I think the most likely scenario is James Cook plays for the Buffalo Bills, and you see him in a role very similar to what you saw last year. And he had a great season for the Buffalo Bills. He could have a season that leads them to the Super Bowl, which would be fantastic. We would all sign up for that. But when it comes down to it, and he becomes a free agent after the 2025 season, somebody else is going to pay him. It's not going to be the Buffalo Bills.
No. Maybe it doesn't have that long-term 5-year deal to it, but maybe his average annual value will make him feel like he kind of won in that regard. I'm also wondering how close is he to his brother Dalvin? Because Dalvin kind of, I'm sure he views hey, I didn't maximize my earning potential. This is your time, James. This is my advice.
Well, Dalvin got his deal in Minnesota, but it was his time in Minnesota was short-lived, and I think that might be part of what's feeding into James as well. Is like, hey, get your money now while you can, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. One injury can wipe out your career.
So if I had to say what is the likely scenario, we're going to have something we haven't had at Fisher. You won't see James Cook. This is my opinion.
Oh, you think a holdout could happen?
I think so, because on a rookie deal, your fines can be forgiven at the end of it. So really, it means nothing. So we could have a situation, Danger, where, all right, I'll show up, coming up week 1. And that would be a mistake, because there is data that shows if you don't go through camp, see what I did there, it leads to soft tissue injuries. It leads to everything else.
Right.
So for the Buffalo Bills, I don't think that's a favorable outcome as well. I'm going to present a fourth scenario to you. And it's funny how he mentioned the draft. We're focusing on the draft. Okay, that's true. What if there's a team that missed out on drafting Ashton Genty or whoever else they had, or a team that thinks they're on the edge? Like Ryan Talbot joined us. He's like, no, you're not getting a second-round pick. I didn't think we get a second-round pick for Stephon Diggs, though.
So you're not making a move unless you get a second-round pick. You're going to get back in return what you invested in James Cook, which was a second-round pick. It would be amazing, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I with a running back class as deep as this one is supposedly, if you leave the draft, if you go into the draft needing a running back and you don't leave with a running back, then you need to fire everyone. I just think collectively we should be enamored with James Cook in 2025. He's going to be magnificent if he stays healthy. He's going to have a great season because he knows at the end of that season, a team like Carolina or the Raiders is going to pay him exactly what he wants, if not more.
There is another angle to this, though. And we know fantasy football, right? What prevents you from taking James Cook in the first round? It's the timeshare. Handcuff is the fantasy football term. I don't see this becoming lion's share work to James Cook. You have Ty Johnson. You have Ray Davis. You have two guys that if James Cook wasn't available, the train is still on time.
Yeah.
So James Cook wasn't on the field for the AFC Championship game, which to this day I still say that was a grave mistake the Bills made.
They were emphasizing protection rather than playmaking ability.
You had 3.5 minutes remaining. You could have you had a whole canvas. You could have run the ball at that point.
We got to get to we're so late. We got to get to a round of shots next in the sports bar, Gino.
My bad here. Baseball, NCAA. We have a little news of the Blue Cross Arena too. We got to get.
Saw that. We're going to get to that and more. A round of shots. Don't forget about last call. If you want to pull up a stool and join us at 866-4FAN 585-866-4326.
Download the Odyssey app and listen to 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester when you wake up. Because mornings are better with sports. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills did sign a punter today. His name's Brad Robbins, originally from Michigan. He was a 2023 sixth-round pick of the Bengals. From the NFL owners' meetings, head coach Sean McDermott and the competition committee looking to take the tush-push out of the game.
There's different forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So we're going to always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
The Orioles over the Red Sox 8-5. Other finals from the majors. The Brewers now 0-4 on the season. They lose on opening day, 11-1 at Kansas City. Chicago, the White Sox 9-0 over the Twins. They're in the 8th. Phillies going up on the Rockies 4-1. The Mets in Miami tonight to take on the Marlins. Red Wings opening day coming up tomorrow. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the sports leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Happy hour continues in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. It's time for a round of shots.
So who won opening weekend in baseball? You could say it was the Dodgers. You could say it was the Marlins. How about the New York Yankees and their invention, the torpedo bat? The bat moves the mast, the barrel down just a bit, making the top of the bat look more like a bowling ball pin. A bowling pin, I should say. For the first time in franchise history, the team hit 9 home runs in the game.
How many times?
9.
9 times.
That happened Saturday. Overall, 15 homers in the weekend sweep of the Brewers. And yes, the bats are completely legal. Rule 3.02 states that bats cannot be more than 2.61 inches in diameter and 42 inches in length.
I love it. How long until everybody else is doing it?
Should be today.
You're right.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Get yourself an MIT dork to redesign the bat and get those bats ordered, and let's see some more pop in these games.
Colin Holman is the new executive director of the Blue Cross Arena, as his outfit will take over on May the 1st. Holman is previously the director of operations for the Ford Center in Evansville, Indiana, where they hosted a lot of big events like the Evansville Purple Aces, for example.
Oh, okay.
And they have an ECHL team there, I think.
All right,
Yeah.
good. I'm going on Wednesday, so I can do a before and after. We'll do a before their takeover of management of the arena, and then when we're in the postseason, we'll do an after.
Yeah.
We'll do a compare and contrast.
I'm guessing you've heard this already. For the first time since 2008, we've got all 4 number 1 seeds advancing to the Final Four.
I don't know if we'll hear that enough.
Which seems right. The experts have been saying this was a top-heavy season. Early lines, Florida is giving 2.5 points to Auburn, then Duke favored by 4.5 over Houston. The Final Four this year in San Antonio.
You know what? Here's a take. No more major events for San Antonio. Get out of here.
Why? What's wrong with San Antonio?
We're going to do it at the Alamo Dome again.
I guess, yeah.
Again. I mean, the Alamo Dome's been around for how many years? Let's pick it up a little bit here. Needs to go.
It's like the southern version of the Carrier Dome.
It's
right?
a joke. I'm done. No more events for San Antonio. They don't get any more of these major events. Moving on.
I heard it's a nice town with a river walk.
Oh, the Riverwalk I hear is beautiful. Sure, I'm sure it's great. How old is that Alamo Dome though? Does it have the amenities of these new venues, these new palaces? I posit no, it does not.
It doesn't matter for the NCAA, Danger. Just truck them, the fans, truck them out. There will be no Kim Mulkey at this year's Women's Final Four. LSU falling in the Elite Eight to UCLA. South Carolina with a chance to repeat. They get back. The final 2 berths get determined tonight. TCU facing Texas. UConn going up against USC. I know you'll be watching, Mike Danger. Games tonight on ESPN. The Women's Final Four then begins on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't tell you where it's at, though. Should look that up.
Maybe that's the compromise. San Antonio gets the Women's Final Four in perpetuity, forever. They'll just forever be Women's Final Four destination, just like the Combine has been in Indianapolis all these years.
Yeah. The Amalie Arena. So that is the home of
Tampa.
Tampa, yeah.
Yeah.
which wasn't that the one that was owned by a pyramid scheme? Isn't that what Amelie is?
Oh, my God. No, Amway. You're thinking
Amway.
Of. Yeah, when it was Amway.
Wasn't Amway weird?
Yeah, Amway was the thing that your neighbor would try to sell you stuff, right? Back in the days of catalogs and whatnot.
Yeah, like, hey, I want to go and get some coffee with it. Great. Hey, I got a business opportunity. Oh, no.
This coffee we're drinking, this coffee is from Amway. It's really, really good coffee. In fact, it's cheaper and better than the coffee you're...
I swear, Amway Arena.
Yeah. That was Amway Arena.
Yeah, right. I'm not
Is
crazy.
Amelie the same thing? I don't know what Amelie even is. Did they rebrand?
Maybe they rebranded because they were... Frank Reich's coaching again. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he is taking the job for 1 year as the interim head coach at Stanford. Of course, football ties run deep. Of course, the new football GM for Stanford being Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I don't hate that move for Stanford. And for Frank Reich, who knows? Maybe he likes it. Maybe he's back.
Frank Reich got a raw deal. I mean,
totally.
As far as like NFL owners, Jim Irsay
ran through the ringer,
and Robert Tepper.
Best opportunity he had, he was never going to be a head coach, and that's Philadelphia.
Yep.
You know, like as a quarterbacks coach, to see what he did through his time with the Eagles, that was special. But yeah, Irsay and Shad Khan did not do him any favors.
The team in hockey the past week that has defeated the best team in the West, Winnipeg, and the team with the best record in the East, Washington, you know the answer. And we made it almost all the way without mentioning it.
You're wrong, because you did mention it earlier in the show. You mentioned it like 5 seconds into the show. I didn't make a note of it. I didn't mention it, but we did discuss the S word early in the show today.
What context? I don't remember.
I think we were talking about Goeli and Pagula and everything else.
All right, yes. They have a roof. They have a scoreboard. They have a team that sucks. Not yesterday, though. Buffalo with an 8-5 win at Washington. That was the third straight loss for the Caps. So this is concerning, right? Alex Ovechkin did score. He's now 5 goals remaining to break Wayne Gretzky's
I wanted
record.
6 goals against the Sabres. What are we doing, guys? Lay down so you can be known for something. Let Ovechkin break the record against you.
Here's another reason why the Sabres team is so demanding, Danger. You need more data? How about this? On the season, Buffalo has a better goal differential than Montreal. Buffalo in last place in the East. Montreal is in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Sabres tomorrow night in Ottawa. Listen anyways.
However, our Rochester Americans getting 5 of 6 points over the weekend.
So the Amerks now just a few points behind Laval. They're going to be home. The Amerks coming up on Wednesday night as the calendar flips to April. Springfield will be making their only trek. We will talk tomorrow to Mike Leone, head coach of the Rochester Americans.
As we do every Tuesday here on your proud home of Rochester Americans hockey. Looking forward to that. So as much as we clown on the Sabres, we are all in on this Amherst team. This is a very special thing brewing here. I know that everything can change when we get to the postseason, but this year does, it's cliche to say it, but it does feel different.
Well, for starters, you've got a dude in net.
Yes.
Yes, you have Levi. That's okay. Let's start there. You've got some veteran guys, and then you've got skill players. Oslin named the AHL Player of the Week today.
He's been great.
Yeah.
He's been absolutely fantastic. Also joining us tomorrow, and we're going to record some conversation with Matt Perino, who joins us every Tuesday as well. He's at the NFL owners meetings. I know he's going to be traveling while we're on the air tomorrow, so we're going to kind of pre-tape and get a little conversation going with Matt Perino on everything that has gone on there at the NFL owners meetings, from Sean McDermott kind of clumsily explaining his stance on the tush push to Brandon Beane explaining why James Cook won't get a contract extension at least before the draft. Matt Perino will join us at his normal time tomorrow, 3:25 here in the Sports Bar. His counterpart there on the Shout podcast, Ryan Talbot, was fantastic earlier today. And also Keith McPherson, WFAN, our Odyssey Sports sister station. If you missed either of those conversations, wherever you get your podcast, you can find the Sports Bar. Just search us out. You'll find Talbot's conversation there. We got Keith McPherson as well. You can also go back and listen to any part of the show that you may have missed in the free-to-download Odyssey app with rewind and chapters. Gino, have yourself a great night.
You too, Danger. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock, brand new episode of The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. And stand by. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.